forgot to hit start stream. So I thought I was live and I was not. But I am now. So are you ready for this? Bam. Ready for some bamboozling? I don't do the bamboozling. That would be Grim, the resident Mirage main. Let me let them know that I might even have invites for them. I do not. Let them know I'm ready if they be on, if they be dragons. Why will this not let me clip that? Why is my clip that button not lit? Back. There we go. Now it is. Now it is. Go to live stream. Is there a way to clear chat? Oh, there is a sound notification. Can I see what that sounds like? Turn that notification volume up. Uh-oh, Grim is level 300. What up,
hey, man.
fellers?
Nothing much. We gotta leave, and Grim went to smoke. Let's leave, and I'll send you another invite.
Alright, sounds like fun. Cool beans. Let's do it. Y'all ready for this? Yeah, man. How long has Grim been gone for?
Like, as soon as he said that you wanted to join, he said he's got to smoke a cigarette because he's mad from the first game he was in and wanted to relax a sec.
Okay. Alright, let's do this. Let's do this, feller.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm excited. My mic is being dumb.
I cannot wait to win this match, friend.
There we go. It's just us.
Yeah, man. It did that to us a game or two ago. It seems to do that too often.
This is your champion.
I'm surprised like it can't find a single player that wants to play with us.
Yeah, I mean maybe there was, but they wound up getting booted during the load in. I don't know.
Oh shit. Let's try that icy shit.
Alright. How many games did you guys get in?
What are you, Oh, just 2 or 3. Did you say you were working on drawing?
No, well, I was, but I was putting. The reason I had to hold off on joining was because I was putting a clip together, or finding a clip.
Sorry,
A clip?
putting what together?
Clip. For
Oh,
the
yeah, okay.
Instagram.
It's just your voice and Grimm's voice are at different levels, and it's hard to like adjust my headset right to hear you both correctly. Sometime with my game audio. Like,
Oh, it sounded like somebody just landed.
First blood. Good thing
Alright.
it's not us.
I am. Where are you? Okay, there you are.
Countdown.
I'm right with you.
So do I need to speak up? Would that help? Would it solve the issue?
Well, do you? I know sometimes in the past, like you hold your mic in a little different, like not in a direct position. Is that
Level 1.
still
no,
true?
I
Or
try to keep it close to my mouth.
okay. Yeah. No, you don't worry about it.
it's more than
I mean,
one?
I can do okay. It's just. All right. Oh, I suck so bad. Oh, I messed up bad on that. Oh, it's 3 dudes.
Alright, this one's down.
Dicks everywhere.
Oh, I'm running out of bullets. This is not good. I got a Mozambique with some bullets, but I'm just about out of light bullets. Oh, I'm scared.
I've got an L-Star and a 45 with probably a little ammo for both. I'm not sure.
Alright. Whatever, forget it.
Oh no! They probably have it now.
Just giving my shields a recharge.
I hear him. I see him.
Just a sec. 1 second. Listen up, I'm getting shot at.
Yeah, there are 2 guys. Man, that L-Star is mean. I was trying it, but I was like behind him with every shot and just fucked
Yeah,
up.
because of like how much muzzle flash, muzzle flare, whatever it's called there is, it's hard to see.
Mhm.
Like you blind
It
yourself
is.
with it. I think anyway.
Yeah, you do. I guess, I mean, it also blinds your opponent when you are hitting them, but it's like, I guess they're trying to balance it by making it hard for you to see it.
Yeah, dumb as shit.
I cannot wait to win this match, friend. All aboard.
We're all part robots. Oh, hold on, I gotta shut my door. Kim is vacuuming, but she opened the door to free Chibs because Opie hates the vacuum. So she locked Opie up to vacuum, so she freed Chibs while Opie's locked up. But like, I can't have the vacuum all over stream. What kind of quality is that?
Oh, she's
Yeah.
vacuuming?
Looks like fun.
Sorry, I was looking at something on the
Of
phone.
course you were.
Did the dogs get freaked out at
Opie
the
does.
vacuum?
Chibs is fine with it.
Non dere plus ultra.
That's pretty good for a dog not to be afraid of it. I guess he's just used to it or whatever.
Yeah, we've had Chibs.
He's like, I'll let
yeah.
you live.
Yeah, we've had Chibs like, I don't know, 6 years or something, so. He's pretty
Oh, cool,
used to
yeah.
our bullshit.
Wonderful.
Oh, I guess they got. I guess that shoddy, non-shot Mozambique was only for April Fool's Day.
Oh, this person is lagging. Oh, man.
I'm coming. I'm trying to get to you. Oh, there's
Yeah,
another
it was
one. I
that
got him.
waif.
I'm with you. Was that
Yeah,
him?
one of those was the guy.
They're not getting back up from that.
Good shit.
Take this wingman, because wingman and stuff.
Yeah, another dude over here. Got him.
Nice.
Yeah, he must have been pretty weak.
Extended sniper mag here. Level
Somebody
one.
else?
We have taken out the
Oh, I hear another dude.
I hit him with 2 wingman shots.
Shit. Threw down the wrong gun.
Finally, alright, good
Got
shit.
you, bitch.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any heals.
Yeah, see if there's
Oh,
some shit
shit.
in here. Ooh, there's a blue body
Yeah,
shield.
yeah,
Get
yeah,
equipped.
yeah.
Here's
I'm dropping that
couple of
wingman
shield
for
cells.
that.
wingman here.
Alright. Yeah, I'll drop. Oh, actually, I want to go get my Peacekeeper back.
Hope somebody's throwing grenades.
My shields.
Oh shit, yeah, he's coming up here.
Oh, and behind me. Did 80 damage to that guy?
Oh shit, 2 guys on the ramp. Come on, teammate.
This guy, our
One
teammate's
of
not
them's
even
real
hurt.
bad.
Why is he?
Come be a man. No, don't give
Are
me
you
up.
kidding
Don't
me?
give up.
He like wasn't involved in the fight at all. He didn't have any damage
Yeah,
until he tried to get you up in the open there.
Yeah, that was dumb.
And he's hitting his shot, so he's not like a total idiot.
Yo,
What's
yo.
up? Did he just
That ain't
tried to get me
Mr.
up in the
Joe.
open again and got killed? Are you fucking kidding me?
Oh man, what a dickhead. You
No,
guys still
we don't.
playing or? No. Teammates' fault?
Yeah.
Fucking teammates.
He didn't get involved in any of the fights until we were both down and he decided to try to get Zero up out in the open, and then he took like so much damage, and then he
He sounds like
Yeah.
a hero.
Yeah. that
and
was-
then like he
Yeah,
got once they
hero.
shot him, he stopped. He didn't have any more shields, and he I don't know had like 70 health left. He starts shooting back and he downs them pretty quickly. So like he can shoot, so he's not a complete, unless it was all luck. But he's didn't seem like he's a complete idiot. But then the next thing he does as soon as he downs that guy is tries to get me up out in the open. And then
And let me guess, he also stole Zero's robot.
yes, he did.
You know you can change that now, right, Joe? If you get a legend, hit Y on whatever character you want to be. In case you forget later.
Yeah, he's
What are
reading
you
Facebook.
saying?
He don't care what you're saying.
Hit the Legends tab, and then go to Pathfinder,
Oh.
hit Y, and it'll change your character to Pathfinder.
Oh, okay, cool beans, thanks.
And then you can just not even select anything in the next thing. What do you do today, Joe?
Nothing. Enjoyed quarantine.
Good old
Good
quarantine.
old quarantine.
Ready, steady, go.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna apply. Guy Fieri
Listen, I've been training all
set
day,
up.
so it's about time
He started some
we do
sort of
fighting.
grant that apparently has raised millions to give restaurant workers like $500 one-time thing, because he knows that like most of your income isn't claimed and
Right.
Your champion.
They're the first ones that all the restaurants are shut down. That's like one of the first things to go. So I was thinking about applying for it. Might as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I heard about it a while ago. I just assumed I wouldn't get it.
This might be a good place to land, but what do I know? Follow the leader.
Do this.
I'm gonna hit the one in that corner
we
there.
got people with us.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some lifeline going.
Oh, I
towards,
thought that was a building. No.
center left bin.
God, open the fucking.
No guns in my box.
Oh, I'm dead. God damn.
Okay. All right. Maybe.
he-
Oh, that's not a gun either. Okay.
Oh, they down me.
Oh
Yep.
God.
The other one's over there.
I got a peacekeeper. Oh.
Oh,
There's
here's a
30
guy.
teammates here. So it's 3 of them.
Yeah, I got shot by I think 4 people. It looked like the one in front, 3 behind.
No, I think that was, yeah.
I
just-
No, it's
almost
just 3.
turned around in time to fight, but not quite.
Yeah, it was just 3 people. Jason, Skitty, and Witty, or whatever.
Man, I was like, oh, I got a gun. I'm okay now, and like I got shot in the back.
Yeah. I feel like there usually are more guns there. Like, I opened my first bin and it took like 3 more piles just to find a gun. Apparently the other guys found guns. So whatever they were doing was working.
This match is gonna be extravagant. That's the word.
We got pork chops tonight.
I just polished my grapple. It's showtime.
Resident Evil 3
Hi, friends.
remake came out today, I think.
I don't remember which one 3 was.
I'm the jump master.
3 was the one where it was with Nemesis and basically the whole time you're just being chased by him, and then like the end was just like, remember I saved up like so many, I didn't use any of my
How about there?
grenade rounds or whatever, and you basically, it took, oh man, he just doesn't die. You just, it's like an insane fight for a long ass fucking time in the end. Running away through like basically the whole map while you're fighting him. And then I think more even show up, more than just one. Let's switch it up, hit these bins.
Oh shit! Give me gun. Give me gun.
Prowler SMG here.
It might just be us.
That's kind of cool.
Round 1.
Look at the map.
Ooh, is that what I think it is? Fuck yeah. Gold shit.
Backpack here.
I need that shit. No backpack for me yet.
There's a blue up here.
Shotgun bolt here. Level 1. Prowler SMG here. EVA 8 here.
Oh, there's an L-star if you want to chance it.
You grab that yeah, my audio went out, my bad. Did you grab that Did somebody grab that Prowler?
No, yeah.
No, it's still over there.
I had to unplug and replug my shit. Still there?
Time for new stuffs.
Go.
Extended heavy mag here. Level 1. Save that for me. Grappling.
There he goes, yo. I don't even feel left out.
Oh,
Got a cool gas
sweetness.
shirt.
Syringe here. I could use that.
Where's the Prowler? Somewhere
And getting
in
the
here?
first
It's on the
building.
opposite building.
We could check out here.
Yeah.
Oh, even
Yeah.
further down?
All the way down in the first.
Gotta hop up here.
There's double tap.
Yeah, I got a prowler. Also, I could use a select fire if we find something. I know you'll be looking for one as well. Shit, I should have taken a picture of that. There were just 3 med kits in that bin.
No shit.
Ship's gonna land over here.
Oh, that's
We
cool.
wanna check it out.
Oh no shit.
I don't know.
Check it out
Sure.
now.
Shooting a bird.
One minute. The ring is far.
Oh, I just picked up a sniper scope. I don't want that shit.
Optics here. Sniper. Rings far and closing in 40.
How's everybody's heels?
I got
There's
no
people
shield,
right
so
here.
I got a med. Oh shit, okay. We're waiting
No,
behind
no,
you, Grim.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
coming.
I don't. Yeah. I don't think they know where I am, but.
Oh, they see me. They're shooting at me.
Okay, I'm with you.
Oh shit!
Oh, shit.
They're over near you. They're over you. Unless they
There's,
jumped off
there's
the
one
ship.
coming to our left too, though.
Yeah. I see Gibraltar.
Yep, Gibraltar's
Right,
down. There's a guy up
Gibraltar
top.
down.
He's already
There's-
dead.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a
drone,
race right here.
BMP.
I'm healing up.
Shit. Oh shit, oh shit. Over here.
He's down. There's only one left that I see.
Yeah, he's over here. Broke his shield.
Yeah, he has no shield left. Where is he?
Over here.
He
over
ran
here.
down
Jumped
there.
down?
Oh,
Oh, he ran
yeah,
down.
he's crawling. He's
No, he's over
crawling.
here.
Oh, it's a different guy. Okay.
He's zipping.
I just got to. Oh, maybe I should. Yeah, did the thing to him.
No.
You
he
got
jumped
him?
off of the thing.
He looks like he fell off. Hey,
Somebody
jumped
shooting
off.
at us from somewhere else?
We probably ought to loot.
Yeah, I don't really have stuff. So.
Yeah, I'll
there
just
should
come
be
back,
at least
Joe.
2 boxes, right?
Yeah, they're right here.
I killed an enemy.
Oh, they're both over here. Shit.
Light ammo here.
Another med kit. USOT. Circle SOT.
Use that circle sight.
Mag here. Level 1.
Those heals are all you guys. You can definitely use some shield cells though.
Yeah, I haven't even found
Oh, here.
any shield cells yet.
Repairing. Shield cell here.
Oh, thank you.
Charging on my shield.
Do you need those back
Nah.
to
Nope.
heal yourself? To charge your
I
own
got it.
shield? Okay.
Here's a U. Must have a U down. I think there's another U too. I think there's 2 fucking U's in this bitch.
I'll take one for my other gun.
Wanna?
Yeah, here's the other
Oh,
one.
goddamn drone!
Oh, that's
Fucking.
someone's drone.
So right here.
Yeah, it's
Fuck your
flying
drone.
past. It's
He's
that
getting the
fucking kid that
banners.
ran.
He's getting the banners with the drone.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, he's not dead? What the fuck? Oh my god, what
Yeah,
the fuck? I was trying to execute this dude.
Shit.
And then he wasn't down. That's the dude with the drone. Oh fuck.
I'm trying to get to him.
Shit, I could have fucking killed him. He ran away
Can-
so fucking far. Just get me
Oh,
out. He's
shit.
literally like a mile away.
I see him. He's over here.
Come on, compadre. Get up. Come on.
I'm bringing justice to this
Let's
fool.
do it.
Yep, you are wonderful. Thank you. Just gotta patch myself up.
I don't know which side of the fucking hill he went up. Oh, he went up
Hostile close.
this fucking rope.
I'm taking this zip line. You are by yourself, though, Zero.
Where's that fucking revive shit?
It's down in the river, actually.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, we're not in the circle, though. Shit, we gotta get to the circle.
We.
Yeah. I would
well-
man.
Okay. Yeah.
We gotta.
Maybe they'll
Anybody
get
have
kind
better
of
shield
fucked up.
cells? I only have one.
I only have one little one.
One
got 2.
left.
Here. Grim behind you. Had to find it in my backpack there.
Level 2.
Fuck. Yeah, I can use that. Fuck,
There was a
man.
purple
I can
of
use
that.
boost
It's just
stabilizer.
There was a
round one.
purple. I picked them up though. I dropped. Yeah, I
Light
dropped
mag?
there was 2 blues. There was a purple light mag and stabilizer in that bin. It was
From
in that
where?
bin that those 2 were in.
Oh,
No,
and it's
I
still in
have.
there?
So I picked the purple up and I dropped the blues.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't look in any bins. I was just running in.
He might have came up to the next in circle revive spot too.
Out again.
Which
Yeah.
is
Can you hear me?
down here. Yeah.
This is all looted over here. Somebody got brought back over that
That's
way.
probably where he went.
I bet that's him, yeah. It's way over there, we might can make it.
Are we pushing that or are we looting?
Yeah,
I don't
we can
know.
do that. I don't really have much, but
I don't know which we should do. Yeah, I don't either. I'm very low on. Well, it's all looted anyway, though, in here, I think.
Right here.
Bad guy.
Somebody
Oh, shit.
sliding down this hill.
Fuck.
It's a wraith.
He's so slippery.
There's somebody else.
You got bamboo.
Or she's so slippery.
Hostile right here, right in front of me.
There is a drone. No drone. I'm losing my
with you.
shield.
Oh shit.
So it's the same
God
squad.
damn, that kid is pissing me the fuck off with that thing.
Firing.
Where they?
Reloading.
Shit, I
How-
don't know.
That's
Fucking
probably
shields.
whoever got brought back. They ran into that tunnel, but I was by myself, so I
I only
stopped.
got 1 shield, so I can't even put a full shield back on.
Yeah, I'm not. I was just bitching.
Oh, I'm swapping for this blue shield in here.
Oh, there's
Select fire.
boxes galore up in here.
Heavy mag here. Level 1.
Yeah.
Is there?
Spit. Havoc rifle here.
Blue,
Oh,
white.
there's other boxes in here, but they're all. There's a flatline in here. There's no good shields though.
Is there any bullets? I only have 40 heavy.
I don't know.
I'm
I didn't
extremely
pick any
low.
heavy up.
I've
I got
got
93.
I've got about 36 heavy
and 93 heavy. There's a bunch of light.
What?
and a
Oh.
fucking triple take.
I have a light gun at least, maybe.
There's a
Scout.
Here, I'll
scout.
I'll put my 99 in here.
Fuck it. I got R45. Nah, that's fine. I'll just use my 45.
Well, it's not. Take it, because I'll use this alternator.
I hate to see four purple boxes and not anything
Nothing
we need
in it.
hardly in them.
Extended light mag here. Level 2.
Oh!
Plenty of. Oh, somebody
That bitch
Wraith
just
on us.
flew
Wraith
through
on
the
us.
portal.
Yep.
No, they went through the portal. Oh, shit. What?
Dude, they're on us right here.
I thought they went
Outside.
through the portal. Shit, we're
Got
getting
two of
sniped too.
How many
Over
times
here.
we gotta kill
I
you
hear them.
fools?
That's that
On
dude.
the roof. On the roof.
Oh, I'm down. I'm down. One.
Yeah, Wraith on the roof.
Yep.
Ah. Oh,
Yeah,
I got the
bitch.
assist.
Come back from that.
Oh,
Oh, I'm down. I'm down.
oh, another squad coming in.
Oh, somebody's zipping in. Somebody's zipping in. But somebody's shooting at them. Somebody's
Yeah,
shooting
yeah,
at
get back
two
here, get back here.
squads.
Getting shot at. Throw my grenade out.
Shit.
Inside.
Airstrike. Come on, heal.
Oh
my God, heal up.
Shotgun to death. I'm trying to block this door, but there's somebody right here.
Coming. Oh shit.
Oh, no.
I heard. I broke that.
Oh, that was.
Man, that was tough.
Yeah, that was bad. 3 squads on us at once, dude. In a little tiny. That's crazy. I can't believe they were all fucking around there. Why would it's
Yeah.
like why would you go start
Well, they
a
heard the
fight with
bullets.
somebody?
That's
Yeah,
probably
but
probably
like
what I can.
15 seconds till the storm moves in, and it's just like, oh, let's go,
yeah.
let's run into the storm in round 2 and start a fucking fight.
Whatever. I got points. I'll take it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I was
me too.
happy with it. I was just pissed off they decided to make that poor strategery. I'll be right back.
Waka waka.
Yep. You want to hear a funny ass joke?
I sure do. I sure do.
Wait, so what was the funny ass joke?
There is no funny ass joke. Yeah,
Right,
that is
that's
the
all I
funny
said.
ass joke.
Right. That's all what, Family Guy?
Yeah.
That's what he says on there or something, right?
Mhm.
Is that what it was?
I'm gonna go back to Wraith. I haven't played Wraith in a while. I like it, the Wraith.
Good old Wraith. Total bitch in the blood.
Introducing your champion.
I'm back.
Right, everyone goes.
Whatever you feeling.
Let's go. I like Repulsor. I've always liked
Let's make a
Repulsor.
choice.
It's one of my
Right
favorite
here.
drops.
Heard that.
Yo, how much is it's cremation? Isn't it like
It was like, from what I remember, it was like,
the
yeah, it was like
cheapest
1,300
option?
bucks or something for my dad.
Dropping in, hang on.
But that was 13 years
Yeah.
ago.
Oh, 'cause I thought I remembered it being cheap. Oh, you want to ship?
We could try.
Might be crazy. But yeah, someone was raising $5,000 for cremation for somebody. It seemed a little.
Yeah, most of that
Wouldn't
stuff is just a scam. I don't see like people asking other people for like some bullshit money.
Yeah, that's something you ask your family for.
Are there
Or
no
like a
cool
close
vests on
rich
here at all?
friend or something. I don't know if there's jack titty shit on here. No, actually, I got 2 guns, but I don't even have a vest.
I got an RE45 and a fucking.
Yeah, I got a
Havoc.
Havoc and a Spitfire.
I did get a gold barrel
Oh, so you got
stabilizer.
the best loot of all of us.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
want to drop
let's
this
drop.
little city?
Okay.
Yeah, somebody was asking. I'm not gonna say any names, but was asking on Facebook. You know, like you do those fundraisers. Somebody did one of those, but was asking
Yeah.
for money because like something bad's going on in their life and they need money badly. And PM him if you want to ask,
I
but
just-
No
don't,
details.
like, he doesn't want to talk about it on Facebook and yada yada yada. And just like what? But it was like set up like a fundraiser, so like it showed that nobody had donated to it. And it's just like, yeah, like
No, I'm not.
what do you expect? Like why would you expect like all of your friends to like come in
Yeah.
and like rescue you?
Barrel stabilizer here.
Like ask like privately if you really need money, but like
I could use that.
Yeah.
I don't
Calling on my real thugs for
know. Yeah,
money.
like just some weird stuff. Like I wouldn't want to like let everybody know that I was struggling to the point where like I'm begging every single person I've ever met. Because Facebook, I mean, like it's not just like your friends; it's like
Yeah.
friends of friends, and like I wouldn't want like all of Kim's family to like know that I'm in a situation where like I need to like beg for money. Like it's just
Yeah.
Yeah,
crazy to me.
Level 1.
exactly. That's kind of, it makes me think of how like some people on Facebook will post some incredibly cryptic shit similar to that, but it'll just be like, sometimes you try so hard with somebody and you just can't reach them and you just gotta let them go or some shit like that.
Yeah.
You don't even know, like they're not talking about anybody that you have any idea what they're fucking
Yeah.
talking about.
Phoenix.
And it's just like, what the fuck are you even, why are you putting this out there? Nobody understands
Yeah,
what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah. We have some friends who are very.
Your mother knows what you mean from your phone conversations with her. It's like,
Yeah,
that's it.
we have some friends who are
Is
like
this for your
very,
mom's eyes only?
open with all of their stuff, and it's just kind of strange.
Oh yeah, it is strange. It's like, I don't
Gotta
want
get
people,
'em
I don't
on.
want to put myself
Yeah.
on blast. I
Smash
mean,
some
come on.
shit.
What happened, friend?
Prowler SMG here.
My audio keeps going the fuck out.
Time for a new thingy.
It happened like 3 times already. Fucking.
Do you have
annoying.
like an expensive headset or something, Grim?
I don't think it's that expensive. It's just about.
You ever thought of just replacing it? Like, I mean, just I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I don't even know if it's a headset. That's the thing. I think it might be the box.
Mozambique here.
oh, okay. Now, when you say
That
box,
little box
you're
not
not talking about just like a little.
I have one of the
nubbin
original
or some shit.
controllers where it's this little fucking box that plugs into the bottom of the controller. I think that might be
Well,
what
you
it
can
is.
buy. I bought an Xbox branded headset. It was like $50 or $60. And I bought it because it came with one of those. So it was an Xbox branded headset.
Actually, I'm-
Over the ear, cool guy thing.
Phoenix kit here. Phoenix
then
kit
it-
here.
It came with that. And it was like $50 or $60. It wasn't a whole lot of money. So
Optics here. Close range.
Oh, I realize I haven't had a regular headset, I don't think, since the 360 days, so maybe I don't know what this box looks like.
it's
I need
actually
heavy.
the 360s used to. Oh yeah, somebody was
somebody
landed
just
on us.
flew. Yeah, they flew on the roof.
Okay.
Oh, they're pretty fucked
Yeah,
up.
not everybody fucking shooting there. Oh shit! What the fuck?
I got one of them.
I made it. I escaped with
Oh,
like
they just
fucking
they just
hell.
called a Bangalore.
God,
Just
where am I
oh,
getting shot from? I broke the shield on this third man. He's hurt again. He's got about 60 health.
Killed an enemy.
No way. Fucking stop healing.
I downed an enemy.
Phoenix kid.
Crawling
Hang
inside.
on, I'll try to be there soon.
I got them.
Alright, fuck.
Good shit.
Yeah.
Way to go.
You got 'em all?
Murder.
Murdered.
So
Damn,
you
as I
are
was
talking
looking
about
over,
that little,
Yeah, the little thing that's on the.
like a little box with a curved. It's just a switch and a volume
It's
control.
like a trapezoid.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
It's just got a mute switch and a little volume knob, right?
Yeah, well, it's not a knob, but yeah, it's a mute switch. It's a volume, buttons up and
I mean,
down.
Z.
A disc.
Gotta hop
Oh,
Yeah.
buttons. Okay.
choke.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen the Xbox One version
Med
of
kit
it.
here.
But yeah, it serves the same purpose as those other ones. Is there?
But it's still it has two headset pieces though, like two headphones.
No.
Oh, it's just a your standard one speaker earpiece with mic.
Wait, one. Yeah, are you talking about the headset itself?
I mean, do you have? Is it stereo or mon? Is
Yes,
it stereo
it's-
or not?
Yeah,
Yeah, the headset
The
itself.
stereo, the headset that I had, yes, it was. It had two ear things, just like a normal headset.
Shield battery here.
I thought we were talking about the box.
Shield battery, yeah. I definitely
Wait, I
need
thought
a
I
battery.
picked up a.
Right. Well, it was a
99.
minute ago, so
What? How do I have a 301? I thought I picked up a 99.
I don't have a 99.
Alright, I'm dropping this 301.
I took it out of your
R301 here.
Here's a
back.
select fire.
I'm not looking.
Select fire.
Is there?
Optics here.
Joe, did you need a heavy blue mag? I
No,
just
I've
one
got,
out of
uh,
that box.
yeah.
I need a light mag would be nice. Oh, there's a blue one.
I
Yeah,
saw a
I
lot.
that.
Oh,
Fuck it.
do you have a
I got
lot?
rid of my
Here's a,
Prowler.
Light mag here.
do you
No, I
already
just
have a
picked up a
lot?
blue one.
Patching myself up.
Somebody's zipping
Okay.
up on us.
Oh yeah.
Two people over there.
You like fire?
Oh, somebody else zipping.
On the roof.
Broke the shield of the next one zipping. Got him.
I got the dude on the roof. Where's the last guy?
Got
Oh, up
one
here.
guy. Oh, here on the roof. On the roof. Yeah, bitch.
Got his ass.
Been busted, bitch.
The fucking wall's coming.
Evo
So,
shield here. Level 2.
is the wall not gonna touch
Purple heavy mag.
Battery here.
Blue white.
Here, there's two shield
Shit,
batteries
I really
down
need
here.
heavy bullets.
There was 120 heavy in
Oh,
this
good
I
on
one
need,
box
yeah, I
on the
need
roof.
some heavy.
Which one?
I mean, there was. Yeah, it's
Okay,
still
that's
some in
fine,
there.
I can take that.
Oh, let me know if you see a prowler in there. I forgot to.
No, it's a
Pay attention
99 and a
first
flat line up here.
There are more boxes, so.
Here, there's a shield battery over here. I don't know if, there's two actually.
About throwables.
Yeah, there's throwables scattered all throughout these.
There's more heavy.
Any burnies
don't
or
know.
nah?
New kill leader. Watch for it.
Oh, I didn't even see this box.
Didn't really intimidate me.
Oh yeah, there's a burning right here. Yeah, don't forget there's two big shield batteries. Oh
Yeah,
shit, I need some more
I'll
light.
take them. I'll take them.
Do you guys both
good.
have a purple
Yes,
heavy
I
mag?
just picked one up,
Yes.
Okay, okay.
and I just picked up a purple light mag.
I think I hear somebody, unless that was you. Yeah, maybe it was you.
We spent longer in there looting than we should have, but there was just so much loot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Minute, ring's not far.
So much loot. So much easier just to kill people and take their shit.
Let's- I'm climbing up to this rock so we don't get, hopefully don't get high ground on.
Go bamboozle. Using grapple.
Somebody zipping or
I
zipping
hear
up
somebody.
there?
Yeah, they just zipped up.
Maybe something good this way.
Oh, we just got pulsed.
Yeah.
We're close to the ring.
That's
30
where they're at.
seconds left.
That's where they pulsed from.
Yeah, I think
Feeling
they're up.
crazy?
Yep, they're up there. They're in that fort. I don't know if we should go in there and attack them.
Storm's
they're
moving
gonna have be
10
looking
seconds.
down at us.
Crazy are you feeling? But they can still stay in
Not
there.
that crazy. Yeah, let's.
Yeah, I don't think we should push that.
I mean, we
Alright.
we get killed almost
Well, then
every
I'll
time we
just
try to
distract
kill
them then.
somebody.
I am taking fire
I
for
Oh
sent
god,
my
they're
decoy
fucking
in
sniping at me.
and opened the door.
They spotted me. There may be a shooter nearby.
Oh god, I'm getting raped, bomb.
recharging shield.
Oh man.
Well, you're a robot, so you could zip us to the top of that shit, like has been done to us.
Yeah,
before.
I can throw you one. Oh, you're with me.
He's
No,
talking about zipping all of us up there.
God damn it, he hit me again.
Yeah, I was talking about the ambush.
Oh well. Yeah, I mean that guy's a pretty good sniper, but we can do that. Oh, here comes his damn drone.
Yeah, we might as well just get away from him so I don't know where we are.
Yeah.
The map says not all of us are inside.
The shit's gone down somewhere in that direction. They can see us again. This way.
Hillside, maybe?
So a lot of squads. Generally
Yeah.
small circles, so.
Yeah, it sounds like they're hillside.
If anything, I'm just trying
Yeah.
to get to an edge so we're not sandwiched.
Danger.
Yeah.
There's
Which,
people over there.
I think someone's
There's a whole squad
Oh,
just
shit,
chilling
okay.
there in the fucking
Okay.
weeds.
God damn. Yeah. God, never Gibraltar down.
I threw 2 thermites over there. Didn't burn a single person. Oh, grenade.
Two down. One's fleeing.
Doing a wraith portal.
Two of
Yeah.
them are running away. Oh shit. I'm getting burned. I'm getting
Go
burned.
get her.
Fuck.
Over here.
They just went back through the portal, I think.
How many? Are you guys
Oh,
No,
coming?
shit,
no, they
okay.
didn't. No,
There's definitely
No,
a
they
number
went
over
back
here.
through the
Oh
portal.
no, they did.
Oh yeah.
Oh shit.
The
Yeah.
portal
Yeah.
actually
Somebody's here.
where I am.
Yeah, it goes behind us.
Go to the
I'm
portal.
done. I almost.
Alright.
Yeah, the entrance.
The portal
Got
goes to where
about
I
100
am.
Yeah,
That's
but the
what I'm trying to
portal
tell you.
entrance is where we are.
Oh fuck! This is like a trap.
They went
Fuck.
through that portal
Yeah.
there,
That must
and they
have been
came
two
out behind
squads.
us.
I didn't even see
Oh,
the
the
portal.
people that I was.
Yeah, that was the end of the
Ah,
portal.
shit.
The beginning was behind us.
Ooh, 66 points.
I'll be back.
Dude, we're continuing our consistency streak, and
Yeah, I
Right.
got 54 points the last 2 games, maybe 3 games. So I'm like very consistent.
yeah, I've got something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Excuse me. Excuse me again, huh?
Each choice changes everything.
What'd you say? Excuse me.
Excuse
what?
me again, huh? What's that?
Oh,
Come on, friend. Time to win.
This is your champion.
Yeah, I was just trying to get off of that hill. We're getting sniped from far.
This might be a good place to land. Loud and
Do it.
get it, get it.
hold your breath if you have to breathe.
Yeah, I can take OP.
Dude, dude, I'm diverting. There's 2
Grim's about to
squads
land.
ahead of us. Let's go up here.
This way.
I'm already here, and there's one squad might have just been my decoys.
Oh shit. I'm coming. Sorry.
Good, we're inside.
No,
It looked like 2 squads landing over there, and I was like, oh shit.
yeah,
And
one
they're
of them
way
was me and
ahead.
my decoys.
Just us now.
Did you
think
wait
there's only
till
one
later
guy
than
here
I
right
did
now.
to jump, or did you jump earlier?
Yeah, I jumped over.
I'll have it done.
Reloading.
I'm gonna try to help you punch this guy because I got no fucking. Oh shit!
I just missed all but the last bullet of that clip. There you go. Go with them. She's down.
Jeez.
Enemy down.
Oh good shit.
What?
Shit. Oh, I just got shot from across the way. Oh, where's it coming from? I think from up top, dude. I think
Shit, we're not close enough to that. They're zipping over.
somebody's zipping to us.
Reloading.
Yep. Broke his shield.
Oh, behind us!
Yeah. Oh shit, behind you.
Yeah, I think there was only one guy that landed with me. That's Gibraltar right there.
Oh
The guy
shit.
killed me.
Yeah, I saw that shit and I was like, oh fuck. It looked like 2 squads and I was like, damn.
Get it down, puppy. Can't be that loud, puppy. Do it again and you die.
I just hope I don't have to fight with that smiling robot.
I just hope I don't gotta fight with that smiley robot.
Trust me. I know what I'm doing.
ship is ours.
Introducing your champion. I'm the jump master this turn.
Where do you want to go?
I guess let's do artillery.
Got a good feeling about this area.
Let's do it.
All right.
Copy that.
Here we go. Ready up.
I'm gonna drop there.
On the roof.
Hold on, no, there's 3 Mirages going to this building. Let's go somewhere else.
Alright, I'm pulling off and going to the portal. Oh, you guys aren't coming to the portal?
Oh goddamn.
What?
Oh man, you said there was the wraith hole thing in the sky. I went to the wraith hole in the sky.
No, you didn't. I see you.
I can't find a fucking gun. Somebody landed with me at one
Yeah,
of
I
these
don't have a
outbuildings.
gun yet.
Okay, I got a gun.
Got a gun now.
There's guns over here. There's a Havoc.
Let me
Oh,
replace this Mozambique and I'll come ready to shred.
I can't remember if I saw a Prowler up here or not. But yeah, there's. I give some energy if you want.
There's
Backpack here.
nothing
Oh,
else
shit.
good in this.
Level 1.
I did see a Prowler. Yeah, there's a flatland up here.
Nothing else
Peacekeeper
good
up
in
here.
this
I
ammo,
got the
in
ammo
this
for that if you
building.
want it.
There was a bag and a knockdown shield and a Mozambique. That's all that's left.
L-Star here. Here, take some energy.
Where's that
that
flatline at
also?
you're talking about?
Right above me right now.
I think I'll go for that. Thanks.
Backpack here. Level 1.
Yeah, I do need me a pack of back. Nope, never mind. Just that one.
Pack in the back and the Mac in the backpack. Pack in the Mac in the back of the backpack.
Pack in the backpack in the back of the Acamac. In the MacBook.
And the MacBook Pro shit.
Somebody landed with me like a caustic,
Got
but I
a
don't
hop
know
up here.
where he went. I guess he ran. He had a gun.
Come on,
I didn't-
energy over
he
here,
didn't chase me.
0.
Energy ammo here.
I'm gonna drop
For
this
you.
Havoc when I can. Thank you
Barrel
though.
stabilizer here. Level
There's
2.
an L-Star too. Do you like the Havoc over the L-Star?
I do.
No, I just wanted.
Yeah, so is both
I
of them.
like the Havoc, but
L-Stars
yeah,
and
Level 2.
I guess I like the All-Star better unless it's like
There's
range.
2 blue stabilizers over
Did one of
there.
you guys do these buildings, or is somebody else do? I pinged the first one.
I opened those bins. I opened them.
There,
I mean, all these A buildings. These are all
Nah.
looted. Did anybody, was
Oh
you guys or
no,
like,
that was the
enemies?
other guys.
Oh, I
there's
didn't see
2
anybody
blue
else.
stabilizers over here if anybody
only
cares.
saw one. Shit,
Yeah,
I'll take
can you
one
not
of
hear
them.
me? I told you I pinged one of them.
No, I just heard you.
Last time you just, I pinged it when you did it, and then when you just mentioned it, I said that. Is that I
I
pinged the
can't see
first
him. I'm
one.
trying to follow you to get the second one.
They're
I
right
don't
next
know
to
what the
each
second
other.
one is. All I know is where the first one is.
Yeah.
Oh, are they?
Alright.
Oh, okay.
I figured it would be
Good
something
shit.
y'all wouldn't want to leave
Shank
behind.
ya.
Hell no.
Fuck
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks. Fuck
Nothing
yeah, no.
good. First pile I come to, there's shield cells and Bernie sticks.
I
Yeah, you
don't
can't beat
know
that.
if They
Except
are
with a
real.
gun.
I think they're just a figment of your imagination.
I definitely picked up. It's on the roof. First pile I saw. I guess the other team went through here. I saw the bins are open.
Yeah, this is looted over here too.
Wanna go try to catch them?
Sniper stock here. Level 3.
Well, Joe's on the opposite end of the compound, so we'd be be outmanned and
I can catch
outgunned.
up.
All the bins are like completely empty so far. Oh, there's shield cell. I could use me some of that.
I was trying to
Hop
throw
up
you a
here.
zip line, but it's all red and
It's all
shit.
good. I'm coming.
Dog shit. Alright.
New kill leader appointed.
Heads up. New kill leader.
I assume everything's looted here.
And then that building's looted too.
I'm dropping 2 heavy white heavy mags.
Well, yeah, I could use one.
Oh, I'll pick it back
I
up.
got
it
it.
back
I'll bring it to
there?
him.
Oh, are you double? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You have it, Joe?
Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
Yep, I got a
Thank
select
you.
fire if we see a Prowler.
Alright.
Power shout. I'm gonna take the zip line into like enemy territory. Or you want to go over this shit? This might not be looted yet.
Yeah, I
I
kind of
see a closed bin. Yeah, this isn't looted yet.
Two
Yeah,
people
I
are
could
zipping
use
up
some
to the
shit for
tower?
Sure.
Oh, dude, zipping up. Yep.
Target spotted.
They're zipping
they're
up
up
to
the
that
tower.
shit.
Yep.
Oh
was
god,
hoping
is
we'd
there a
find some
cool
armor,
weapon
but-
in here? Fuck. Oh, what the hell?
They're wanting some.
You're too fast.
I can't put. There we go.
Dude jumping off.
There, yeah, he just jumped off.
There's another one just jumped off.
Go to hell, you bitch.
Got one.
Where's the third guy?
Behind us, behind us.
Oh,
behind
I
us.
thought that was like Joe or something.
Well, I jumped up, killed somebody, and then somebody else came from behind
Yeah,
me.
well, that bangler, I saw them the whole time, but for some reason I thought that was Joe
Oh,
helping you
shit.
kill somebody else. But really,
There was only 2 the whole
it
time, right?
was not Joe. No, there's 3.
No.
Right? Did
I
you
thought
down
there
one,
was
Joe?
3.
I mean, 0?
Yeah, there's 2 boxes.
Yeah, I downed one.
But I
yeah.
only saw 2 zip up.
Yeah, I got 2 kills out of that. You guys?
I got
So,
one.
okay, so where's the third box then?
Yeah, there's 3 boxes
Oh,
down
is
here,
there?
Joe. I'm on one of them, and then there's 2 behind me.
Okay.
Ammo here.
Is there a good vest for me in here? Yeah. No.
One of them's
Alright.
hidden behind this shit.
Helmet here. Level 2.
Med kit here.
Hmm. There's no med kits. And
Shield cell
I could use one circle sight, I guess. Oh, guns. Was there any other cooler guns?
There's a 45 in here.
I didn't
No.
notice.
RE45 here.
Yeah, I just picked up a 45, but I'm looking for like super cool guns.
repairing my
The
damage.
coolest.
Yeah, 99 or 301. Hopefully.
Alright, I'm gonna drop
Alternator,
Barney
yeah.
stick.
I already had the guns I wanted.
Thermite grenade here.
Ooh, a Bernie. Ooh, 99.
Already inside the ring.
Motherfucker.
I can
right.
spare a
Optics here.
box or
the
2 of
circle
light
sight.
ammo if anybody needs it.
Shield cell here.
I'm good.
No,
Joe?
I'm good. I
Joe?
got,
Need
I
some
got
of that light?
180 light.
Alright.
and good to go, bro. 120 heavy.
Good
Shield
shit.
cells.
I'm stacked up from the.
What do I need? Oh, that Bernie stick, is that still there?
Yeah,
Where
it's
was it?
in
In
one
a
of the
box or
boxes.
something? Where was that? And did you ping a better helmet? I thought I heard
Yeah,
something
there's a
about
blue
that
helmet
like around the
in
fight
here.
time or something.
It was after the fight. It was.
Let's go
It
this
was.
way.
In
I've
there.
got one. I don't
Shield
know if I got
cells.
it out of there or not.
Oh, there's a caustic
no, I
trap
didn't-
down here.
I didn't get one out of there.
Owsies.
Oh shit. Oh,
Well, that don't sound like no fun.
They're here. They're here.
Oh,
They're
Santa
here.
socks. I could use 2 of them bitches.
oh,
Ah,
Grim, come
fuck.
back, come back.
I'm coming. Where are
Up
they?
top.
In the top part?
Listen, let's
Yeah,
move
on the
out.
roof. Oh god, I'm getting
Oh,
fucked up.
on the
Yeah,
roof?
there's a lifeline and
One of them is at least.
damn, lifeline got me. She's up there.
Got one of them. Oh shit, the other one's almost killed me.
The other one's almost dead.
Escape. I got
Lifeline
one.
coming down.
Got him. I got
Lifeline
another.
above your heads.
All right.
Alright, I'm
Oh, she
Peterson.
killed
Is
my
that the
ass.
last one?
Yeah, you need to heal. Oh shit. She's
I
coming
see her,
down.
I
I hear
see
her
her.
stomping.
She's getting somebody
Ping her,
up.
ping her, see where
She's
she's
getting
going.
somebody up. She's getting somebody up here.
Oh, I hit her with it. I hit her with it. Knocked her.
Oh, she's down
No,
here.
she's getting him up right in front of Zero.
Right here, right here. That's her. That's her. She's getting him up. Yeah.
Ya bitch. Suck my
Help
D.
me. Help me. Good shit. I bet there's some super cool armor in there.
Yeah, go
Blue
ahead,
Evo.
shit.
And there's no revives close.
Rebel standard stop.
The one with artillery is probably the closest.
Oh, good shit.
I need a
Oh,
bigger
I didn't know
bag.
you
Yeah,
were-
I'm halfway to
Oh,
time
shit.
it out.
I smell victory.
Oh shit. Are you on it, Zero?
Oh, yes, yes.
Oh, you're down the hill. No, he's up there.
No, he's up.
Yeah.
I'm getting him. I'm getting him.
Alright.
There's new boxes up here too.
That was an awesome fucking knock, dude.
Incoming care package.
Yeah.
From far as fuck, I threw an arc star and just pegged him. Yeah. That
Oh,
was
that's
just
sweet.
luck.
Who was that?
The medic, I guess.
From down there, when you're like, oh, they're coming, and then next thing you know, they're dead. When they're like, oh, the lifeline's getting somebody up, I threw the arc star, and it actually hit whoever was like the person
A
on our
med
way
kit in
or
there.
whatever.
Shield battery.
I smell victory.
Oh, is there not a
No,
respawn?
in
I'll
the
stop.
artillery.
Yeah, I'm looking. Okay.
Need just a, back
Yeah.
where we
Am
came
I
from.
facing it? Yes. Yeah.
Alright, yeah. Ooh, do you have any syringes? I need just a little tad bit of health.
I had
I've got
stuff
one
in my
syringe.
box, but yeah.
There's med kits. There's med
Where
kits
did
back
I'm up
here.
on the roof.
Die, Joe. Oh, you're up on the thing.
Yo, there's a med kit in the gold box.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just use that.
Oh, I didn't know you just needed like.
Yeah, Zero,
5%.
you're
My
not
bad.
fully healed
yeah,
either.
well, whatever. I'll waste the med kit.
Oh shit.
yeah, you
yeah.
are
I guess
neither.
I'll.
Alright. Let's go. 3 other squads. Oh, it's like right here. Okay, so Joe can get all this shit. Plus there's a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah, we probably ought to go back down there and get a little more loot anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's some heals, I know.
Someone
I
get
thought
brought
I'd
back
picked
right
up
here.
some. Oh, shut.
You fell for it for a second, didn't you?
I did. Oh, dude, there's enemies down here. For real.
Ah, shit.
Oh,
Alright,
shit.
you just keep shooting. I'm doing ultimate shit.
Thermite grenade out.
As soon as I get a gun, I will do whatever helping I can.
They're all down here, Zero.
I'm coming.
Alright, enemy down. You go.
I got like, they're almost all dead.
Lifeline's down.
Do it. Where are they? You got them?
One more on the other side of the fence.
Go to hell, ho.
Good shit. Leave it alone, Opie. Leave it alone. Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Damn, that was awesome. Flatline, 200 heavy rounds,
Opie, leave it alone.
med kit, shield battery,
I think I hear
extended
footsteps.
heavy mag.
Level 3.
Yep,
Patching
yep.
myself up.
Yeah, come
Shit, I
back
need
in the
to
building
have
if
a
you
little
can,
bed.
Joe. There's heavy.
there's
Oh
shooting
shit,
us.
they're over there. Alright, fuck it. I got enough for a fight between two guns. Let's go get them.
Oh shit, I don't have enough.
I don't see where they're at.
Good. We're inside.
They're up top on this shit.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where.
Okay, but up top, all right. Joe, that purple box outside the back of that building has a bunch of shit. Flatline, heavy
Yeah,
ammo.
I'm grabbing some stuff from the box inside.
Oh shit.
They're
They're on
all
top
the way
of
up
us.
top.
Grim.
I think I can hear them. Yeah. No, they're in
Yeah.
here.
I'm coming.
Shit, coming.
They're both in here. Help, help, help.
Shit.
I broke the shield on the. God.
Attention.
I should have stayed outside the door and let them come to the door.
You're in a hot zone. Picked up our teammates.
Not what I wanted to do. I want to reload.
Good damage.
I'm gonna take a break. The Bazek.
All right. Oh, Grim, can you leave the lobby?
I ranked up. Insanely true. Though.
He's gone already, I guess.
I'll start a new lobby here. I want it. Let me invite you. There we go.
Alright, I'm opening Apex pack. Opie, you're making way too much
Alright.
noise, bud.
Yeah, that's Opie. What's he doing?
Nah,
Playing with
he's
toys?
licking like his bowl. He's trying to get every last scrap of food out of it.
Oh, yeah, it sounded like he was like rifling through his silverware.
So let me go put some food in his dish so he stops that. I'll be right back. Alright.
All right.
Nope, we're not gonna do that. That's a fuck no. Opie, I got a full bowl of food for you, buddy. There you go. You'll be eating that for like an hour and a half before you're ready to throw the bowl all around. Alright, I'm back. You still here? Big man? Big man on
Yeah.
campus?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, as much as we play together, we have a pretty good. I don't know. We play well together. We get along extremely well, but our communication is. We've been playing together long enough that our communication should be much better than it is, and our
You mean like in a
yeah,
in a
just
fight?
like I don't know, all together. I mean, it's been. I don't know. We've been playing together a year. I have no idea how long it's been.
Yeah, something
Game's
like that,
been
yeah.
out for over a year, so
No cluster foxtrots.
I don't know. But yeah, so the I don't know, like we know what each other like, but like we're not at a point where like we can predict each other's movements, kind of. You know what I mean? Or we don't communicate
Oh, yeah.
extremely
Yeah,
well. I don't know.
Hey, stay on me. I'm the jump master.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you have like a particular area you're talking about, you know, hit me with it. I know. I mean, I know it's hard to define that stuff sometimes.
Jets, we're dropping
Yeah,
out.
no, it just, I don't know. There's just sometimes where there's confusion about stuff, and we've been playing together long enough that there shouldn't be. You know what I mean? Like, we should. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like, do
Somebody
you have
on me?
like a? Well, hold on a second. I don't have a gun yet.
Downrange.
Oh, there's a whole squad
Oh
here.
shit! I was trying to punch him.
Fire, friends.
And somebody's
Find a
zipping
gun.
overhead. There's more than one squad here.
Wonderful.
All right, I got a gun. I got a gun. Oh my God! Climb the wall! Climb the wall!
I am taking fire, friends. Lucky us. We are already inside the ring.
I'm chasing the guy. God,
Yeah.
there's a million of them. I'm reloading. Ooh, die, bitches.
Nice. There's at least another squad.
Dude,
Yes.
is there yet another
There's
one?
another squad here.
Fuck. Oh shit! Yeah,
Yeah,
please
I'm
crawl
trying
in
to crawl
here.
to you. Towards you.
Oh, okay. Oh, which
I'm
one
over
is
here.
you?
I just got
Which one is
sniped
you?
from back there, from the way I was
Or-
coming.
Oh,
I'm gonna smoke as soon as I get up.
oh God. Oh, it wouldn't let me
Come on,
pull the
open your-
trigger, dude. I mean, I pulled the trigger and the gun didn't fire.
Yeah, it does some dumb shit like that.
It must have just been lag. Yeah, so like, do you have like even a hypothetical example of the communication that you're talking about?
Like, we should, like, sometimes there's confusion about directions. So, like, and that's also part of it. We've been playing the game long enough that we should have some lingo for the map. I remember when I was playing Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2 or whatever for the PS3. There was a guy that I met who like walked me through some stuff, like because there was already lingo that was created for different areas of those maps. So he walked me through and like taught me what different things were. Like, this is the crack house, this is the this. So if you hear someone peeking around the left side of the crack house, you know where to look. And that was,
Right.
I mean, that was more of a team-based shooter, so it was like Call of Duty, and the fact that like everybody spawns like on the same side, sort of thing. Yeah.
Smaller map, too,
So like,
right?
if they say the left side of something, everybody's facing the same direction. It's everybody's left. You know what I mean? So if I said there's somebody on the left side,
Yeah, we should all
right?
call out.
So like,
Maybe we should call out north, south,
right,
east,
probably.
west. I try to do that a lot of times, but not all the time. I mean, sometime in the heat of a battle, you can't. It's kind of hard to look up at your compass, but when you can,
And
oh, you son of a bitch, random.
forget like my I draw a blank for words a lot of times when a lot of stuff's going on. It's like, oh, there's a thing, a fucking a guy on the thing. The thing is shooting the stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it's all just a bunch of like vague shit.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But like, I don't know, just like in a situation like we just had where there's an upper floor and a lower floor, like when we're fighting at the tower, like, and I mean, I've been playing a lot of
Right, there's kind of
Right.
two upper floors.
and I've been
in a
playing
way.
other games with Grim, I mean, longer than like we've known you. So it's like, and me and him don't have like a thing. Like, I know like what guns he likes, but like, and I know he's an aggressive player, but I don't. If somebody asked me like a quiz, like, what would he be most likely to do in this situation? I couldn't tell you. And I just feel like
It's because he's a
he is-
wild
he is
card,
pretty-
man. No, I couldn't either. And I mean, same for all of us. I mean, yeah, I agree. Yeah, maybe with buildings we can make sure to never call the roof the upper floor. I mean, that's just one. That's just a small suggestion, because
Right.
it's the roof, and that's no ambiguity. And the upper floor would be the highest, or top floor, whatever, would be the highest actual floor with a ceiling.
Right. Okay.
The actual story of the building,
Yeah, Frenchies always go first.
and maybe we can try to.
I think we should
I mean,
figure out
you're
a
absolutely
lingo
right in, like,
for
saying,
like
you know-
these things. Like we call these train cars, which works.
Yeah, it's not exact. I mean, yeah, I guess they are train cars. I started to say they're not really, but then I look at them and they are. They're just stacked up in some cases.
Right.
Because like they've got the. Well, I don't know. Maybe they're not. Shit, they're fucked up looking. I guess they're not. They just kind of
Yeah,
are
and
laid
they
out like
kind
a
of-
train car.
No, they have seats in here. Maybe they are old train cars.
Oh, I didn't even see the seats. Yeah, okay. They just kind of made them ambiguous looking.
Yeah. But like, so I don't
yeah,
know, like,
yeah.
I just think we should be able to say there's somebody here or top floor of this, and we should all know what that is, what that means, where to aim and shoot. That's just my opinion.
Let's explore this body
Yeah, I
shield
think that's
here.
a.
Level 2.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, but
That
like,
trigger.
there are so many. Every location on the map is almost like a separate map, and like,
It is.
man, it'd be hard. Hey, dude, it'd be in some cases it would be hard to give like every sub building of every separate area its own name. But I don't know if you're even saying that. You're just
Well, not necessarily. I mean, it would be, yes, but like if we things that are similar could be called the same thing. Yeah, I mean, like,
yeah. Maybe we could say.
so
oh,
there's
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
like at artillery. I mean, now we don't. I don't know how long that's going to be around, or we're going to be playing artillery. But like, there's or repulsor. There's the A buildings. There's, I mean, stuff like that where we all kind of know. But even with the A buildings, it's like there's a guy at the A buildings. It's like, well, which one? There's 3 of them. You know what I mean, like, I think we should be
Right.
able to.
Obviously, it's A building A building B, A building C.
Well, I think we should start it at
You don't
F.
I
call
think we
that-
should.
A building F.
Right.
A building G.
A building subsection
Yeah.
point one.
F building U, F building K.
You forgot the C.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. I would suggest, like, well, first of all, I'd
There's only
suggest
3.
using pings.
There's only 3 of them.
And maybe if you say somebody's up there, we can say at my ping or something, and ping an area, even
At
though
my
you can't
ping.
always see a ping that well. Yeah,
There's an enemy
he's on
at
my
my ping.
He's, he's
Stroking
hanging
my
off my
peen.
tip.
Get off my peen, enemy.
but maybe
Here's a
like
tip.
in an area like that,
Backpack here.
like
Level 2.
instead of saying last A building, which could be either end of them, you could say like east or west
Close
A
or
building.
far.
So if you think of the sector, well, yeah, if we're all together, you can say
East or
close
west,
far.
I feel like takes me longer than close or far.
Well,
Whenever
now closer
I get
far would be better
map,
if
like,
you're together.
north to south directions, I think it takes me a minute to look around and see where it is. Personally.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that. But if you're not all together, if you're on separate ends of the compound, then close and far are two
Right,
different
just like
buildings.
left and right could be 2 different buildings. But and like what I was saying to Zero
Yeah.
is like we've been playing this already long enough that like we should know, we should have a shorthand for stuff. Like we've lived in Kings Canyon long enough that I think we should know the directions, honestly. Like in Philly, you know what I mean? Like, we know if someone's like, oh, it's like, I mean, go east. We know which direction is east because we've spent enough time there. I think we've spent enough time in Kings Canyon that we should
Sure.
also know that.
In general, I can.
Somebody spell
Sometimes I
grenades?
get a little confused, but yeah, in general.
Somebody just throw a Bernie stick? I hear fast legs.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hear him. Is he below? I can't tell if he's below or above. Above, I believe. I'm gonna zip up.
Coming up.
Hostile right here.
Oh shit, I
Yeah,
went
he's
to
up
the
here.
roof.
Oh, there's two of
Shit,
them.
I
There's
still
two
went
of
to the
them.
wrong roof.
What? The fast legs is hurt
I
very
keep going to
bad.
the wrong fucking floor.
Here's the guy waiting to handle it.
Oh,
fast legs
come
coming on the left.
Fast legs with your dumb shit.
Teammate might
He's
get.
coming on your left.
I look like
Oh, teammate, you failed us. Oh, I think a third guy came in actually. Oh, teammate and I had identical damage.
Where'd the third guy come on him?
On his forehead.
Right in his face. Yeah, but like that's the only, like when it comes to a big. I mean, sure we can make lingo for sure, but with 20 different areas or something, in cases where we don't have lingo for it, like I would say just say north, south, east, west, like relative to the area you're in, unless you're together, in which case I would say closest one or something. Or I think pinging. I think we should ping like all the time.
Pinging's
I don't
the
think we
easiest,
should ever
for sure.
say enemies over there.
I even
We
ping
should.
enemies before I start shooting them, which sometimes fucks me up 'cause I'm wasting time pinging somebody I'm in a fight with before I actually shoot them. Just so you guys know where the fight is.
Yeah, I don't always notice it, but sometimes the pinging with all the noise going on and shit, you can't see it or hear it or something, you know. But it'll help anyway. I mean, we shouldn't ever say over there when we can help it about an enemy or where I'm shooting, because we might not be able to see each other.
Right. Right, that's all I'm saying. All I was saying was that we've spent enough time together and on these maps that we should have a shorthand for things. And like, surprising that we don't. Like, we have a shorthand for like the characters, because I mean it definitely is super helpful to know who we're in a fight with. I mean,
Yeah, I think some of the. Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna reiterate that point, but Dad, you go.
No, I can never remember the names. That's why I just say whatever describes
I have
them
trouble
fastest.
remembering the names of a lot of.
That's where like I
areas.
started saying portal
Yeah,
bitch and
but I mean, and that's
Yeah, right.
fast guy because like I can't remember what the fuck they're called.
and that's
when
yeah,
I'm
no, and
fighting.
that's fine, and that still conveys enough information that the rest of us know.
Bernie stick. That's because I couldn't remember what it's really called, and that's why I started saying.
But by knowing knowing that information, like if we know, like if we got in a habit, here's an example, we get in a habit of calling out who we're fighting, so who we see and who we're in a fight with, call out.
Get ready. Today
There's a
I'm
like we don't have to call out every shot and every damage like some people do, like, oh, 15 on him, 15 on that, 12 on that. I mean, just like I'm shooting at a lifeline, or I'm shooting at a healing bitch, I'm shooting at a portal, shooting at fast legs, a robot, whatever.
But if I do like 80 or 130 damage to somebody,
Yeah,
they're
no,
almost
then yeah,
dead,
convey that,
I feel like that's
so that we
Yeah.
know who to push. But yeah, some people out there call out every shot. It's like, oh, I hit him for whatever, for 15 damage, 15 damage, 15 white, 15 white, 15 white, and it's like,
Yeah.
that's too much information. I
yeah,
don't
I
care
never
about
do
all that.
Yeah, I only say it if it's like some number that means they're almost dead. Whether it's in the beginning they have no shield or they have a shield. And they're
Right,
probably
like
almost
calling
dead.
out like a shield break is a good call. I if it's not a white shield, I try to call that out also. Like if somebody has a purple or definitely a gold shield, because then they can probably heal before we can get to them. Oh, people landed with us.
Right. Okay. South side.
Somebody's on me.
Hey, dude, right on me.
Nice.
Got it. Oh, I
Thank you,
got Joe.
thank you,
no,
thank you.
no.
Where's his box? There he is. I need his gun.
We've taken out the champion mid-day.
Here's some
I
heavy.
just got a P2020. Yeah, I could use something else.
Scout there.
Here's a 99. Oops. Yep. Never mind. Here, here's a box of light.
Okay, yeah, I got 20 bullets.
You have your healing thing?
Down.
I can use that.
Next ring's far.
Alright, I got 49 light bullets.
Recharging my shields.
I got 70.
I have 48.
Let's get the killing.
I'll lose that battle.
Get the killing and get the.
Oh, here's some. Oh, enemies down the
see it,
stairs.
buddy. I see it,
To the
bud.
west here.
They're
Oh,
right
they're
in here.
across. They're across. Okay.
Nice.
Got one of them. Got the one Grim was fighting.
Coming from the
I'm
bridge.
fighting them coming
Right,
across the
right,
bridge.
right.
Two of them. Two of them coming across the bridge.
Go
Gibraltar, down on the south side of this building. Gibraltar down.
I'm down.
Enemies down.
Caustic
The last guy's right here, Jeff.
He's hurt.
Caustic's dead.
Good shit. Two squads turned to bods.
Hey, so you dinner now, huh?
We're dropping bonds. Dropping bonds.
Thank you.
Hell yeah. I hear a loot tick. Oh, I see it. Oh, there's a lot of ammo in there. Here's a
Oh,
hammer.
actually, I'm gonna take that havoc.
Here's energy. Here's a bunch of energy.
Okay.
Energy ammo here.
Give
Yeah,
your
I'm dropping my healing thing
shit.
down here at zero.
And headstrong.
If you can get down here
Alright.
to us.
There's a vest in one of these boxes here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I forget. In this one.
Yeah, I got it. Thanks.
Level 1.
Oh, there were two of them. Thank
Anybody
you.
have any more heals?
Oh, what happened to my
I
thing?
got no medical heals. I got one
Yo,
shield
yo,
battery.
no. Cut that
Oh, it
shit
just
out.
ran out of energy.
Cut it out, Opie.
Recharging my shields.
Yeah.
Rings closing in.
Hey,
Here's one syringe for whoever wants it.
Yeah, I'd better take it. I got no
Opie,
health heals.
whatever you're barking at,
Thank you.
stop.
45 seconds. Rings far.
Oh, is that like a badass growl he just let out a second?
Yeah, he's-
Grrr.
I don't know what he's growling at. There's nothing going on. Yo, cut it out. What's going on out there, babe? Oh my god. Opie, cut it the fuck out.
I can use select fire.
Flatline up here.
All right.
Line here.
Opie, Opie.
Basically, I am repairing myself.
How far do we gotta run? I gotta see what the fuck he's barking at. He's barking at something in the hallway. Like, what is
Not annoying
what
at
is
all.
going on in the fucking hallway?
I can see that the ring's here on the map. Close range. Heavy ammo.
Opie, cut it out.
Yeah, I could use some heavy. Where's that shit at?
Up at the top building in the back bin outside.
Oh, it's outside. Any heavy mags? I have a proud select fire. I can use heavy mag.
Flatline here.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
no,
one yet.
flatline.
Attention. Delivering care package.
Looks like a care package is coming in. Big things in that.
Yeah. Does it come through pretty loud over the
Barrel
Separate
stabilizer
mic.
here. Level 1.
yeah, probably.
I mean, I can hear pretty loud. So,
I'll snap your
there
neck,
any-
dog. I'll burn your fur off.
anything else while
motherfucker.
you're at?
Havoc here.
There's energy, just have it.
Level 3.
I'll burn your fur off like it's a
Standard
Chinese
stock
meal,
here.
bitch.
Level 2. Heavy ammo.
Oh,
Oh,
fuck
shit.
yeah. What is it?
Heavy ammo here.
A bunch of light up here. Stock?
That. Keep eyes on
I
the
could
new
do
kill
that.
leader.
I got no Stizax.
Here I go.
Thermite grenade here.
Heavy ammo here. Yeah, I could use that.
Unmute it for the fans.
No, he's being dumb for life. Dumb life to the max.
That'd be a sweet tattoo.
Dumb life to the max.
Dumb for life, but yeah, that too.
Alright, now that that shit is fucking over with. And my rug is all bunched up under my feet. Thanks, Opie. You the best, Opie.
Did you, did you figure out what it was
No.
he was barking at?
I would have had a...
Just a robber,
the-
nothing big.
Yeah.
Not important.
That would have been a real bark. That
I'm getting
was
invited
the
by
case.
some weirdo.
Gotta hop up here. Select fire.
Heavy ammo here. Optics here. Close range. Standard stock here. Leather 2.
Oh yeah.
Who's the weirdo inviting you?
I could use that.
Just some random?
Wait, what? Oh,
Barrel
yeah,
stabilizer
bullet
here.
something.
Leather
Like who the
2.
fuck? That's been happening to me somewhat lately. I'll just get like invites from some random weirdos. I have no idea who the fuck they are, but not even like right after I play with them. I'll be like
Barrel
playing with like
stabilizer here.
people that's
Leather
not them for a while.
Thermite grenade here.
There's a burning, some more shield cells. The wall's like on.
Yeah,
her
I pinged a
fucking
purple
ass, bro.
barrel stabilizer.
Dibs.
No use site over here. Somebody needs to get that shit.
I'm Yude. Yo, 3 boxes of light while I'm pinging this.
Okay, yeah, I'm good on that, I think.
I'm gonna throw us a zip right here.
Zipline deployed.
Zippo Lino Deployo.
Using grapple.
We get it, you're a Harry Potter fan. We get it. I'm just joking.
Mm-hmm. Got your healing thing? I'm gonna need it.
Yeah.
Here's a blue helmet.
Level 2.
Beginning ring countdown.
Somebody was
Heavy
just
mags
brought
I
back
could really use.
somewhere.
There,
Yeah, I heard that.
There
I
you
didn't
go.
see.
I'm dropping it.
I got this sweet ass prowler. No mag on it.
Did
I
you
can't
find
even
a
use it.
select fire?
Like a bitch. Yeah. Turns out I had one the whole time. I didn't realize. I even pinged another one just in case somebody else.
Yeah, it
wanted
turns
one.
out I had one on my Havoc for some period of time.
Dude, we're getting points in matches, like, without even fighting anybody at times
Yeah.
here. Oh, well, we did fight somebody. My bad.
Damn right it's your bad. Take that shit back. Take it back.
You better take that shit
Take it
back. Take that shit back. So,
If you guys see any kind of zoom sight, I needs it for my scout.
Here, I can give you a 2x.
Ah,
Optics here.
finally a
Close
fucking
range.
heavy
Thank
mag.
you.
God damn. Shit, I need more heavy ammo now. Boom, boom.
I dropped my only box of it way back.
Light ammo
I
here.
haven't. I've seen a
Six
shitload
stack-
of light.
six
Yeah, there's
stack
an
of
insane
light.
amount of light.
Rings nearby. 1 minute till close.
I think they ought to stop
Who shot
making
you?
the ammo so random. Like,
You got Pam.
however they randomize it, like
45 seconds. Thermite
they ought to
grenade
put like equal weights to the different kind of ammo. Maybe they do, and it just shows up in different parts of the map. Oh, here's heavy, dude. Yeah, oh, you see it. Okay.
Okay, so we are heading west. Going down this hill is west.
Fuck yeah.
And
So
more
up
heavy.
this hill is
No
east.
shots on the
Hey, do you
I'm
want your
full
2x
now.
back?
No. No, if you're gonna just
Okay, I just
okay,
found
yeah.
a
If you're
3x.
gonna put it on the floor, I'll take it. But if you're can use it on your other gun,
Yeah,
There's
you know,
a
I am.
you put it
99.
on the floor, or you're
I'll
gonna
bring it to you.
More than that.
Well, no, I was putting it on the
One
floor.
more.
Yeah.
because okay.
The rings close.
Use one med
I
kit.
got a
Big
1X
shield
on my other
cell.
ship.
I also got 0.
Oh, 0, there's a
shit, I
blue
only
bag here.
have some dumb vest
Backpack
also.
here. Leather 2.
Oh, thought I
Thumbs
had
getting
one.
brought
Okay.
back.
You all got blue vests. You're too good for your blue vest.
No,
Move in.
Mine's a fucking Evo. It's really only a white
Wow.
vest.
Okay, I'm moving to Grim, to the
Okay.
northwest.
I am.
I'm gonna double check this building to
Oh,
waste time.
Whatever.
Too far from the dragon.
I forgot about that 2x up there, so I'm just gonna leave that.
Let's go this way.
Canceling that. I'm coming.
Okay, I hear shit
Other
popping off to
people
the
are already
west.
involved. Alright.
I'm 30 feet behind you.
Shit, she picked up another Bernie. Fuck.
Okay, there's a dude on the roof at my ping to the
go.
west. He's jumping off. He just jumped off behind that.
Ring countdown.
Yeah, it's going down heavy
We
over
going?
there.
Oh
That's,
shit!
containment.
Getting shot from behind.
Oh, okay, yep. On my ping, I
Okay,
just
yeah, I
got
just
fucked
got
up too.
pulsed from the
I broke her
southeast.
shield.
Birdman over here.
Oh, this Wraith is hurt real bad on this rock.
Birdman on the roof.
There she is.
Yeah, Wraith down.
He's
Birdman
on the
yeah.
roof.
Yeah, dude on the roof right there.
He just jumped off.
Yeah.
Top level shield. He's on me. He's on me. He's on me. Kill him.
Oh, one behind you, Joe. One behind you.
Alright,
Sure.
Birdman down.
Fuck.
I'm
Oh,
just
they
pinging
shoot
him so you'll
something
know
like
where he's
crazy.
at.
I'm dead.
Coming right in front of you.
Oh, the Havoc took too long to spin
try.
up. Damn.
Oh, I hate that fucking spin up bullshit on the Havoc.
You know what I should do? I should hold the trigger and start the spin up before I aim down sights. I just thought about it because I aim down sights and I stop moving as fast, and then I hold the trigger and it starts to
right.
spin up while I'm moving slow. If I start to spin up while I'm moving quicker, and then by the time I pull up,
You're right.
I'm blasting on fools.
Yeah, you know, I have trouble with the timing on the spin up. Like, even if you know you're about to get in a fight. Like, I hear some kids keep it spun up, and I try to do that, but it feels like it's hard to cut it off just at the right moment, short of firing it. Or it'll still fire quickly.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. Yeah, yiggity, yeah. Yeah, yiggity, yeah. Oh, Zero Logic Games got a new view.
This is my favorite part. I'm ready for this. I'm so ready for this. I am extremely ready for this.
Yo.
Come on, we've got work to do.
This is your champion.
Good luck, brothers.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, let's try freaking,
There's that.
what? You want
Here we go.
Some
It's
smoke?
a long drop. Fun.
I want all the smoke.
How about this way?
Joe, there's these two guys that are very intimidating. And they're following me, so I'm dropping. Body.
Level 1.
Shit. Where the fuck is clothes in here?
Frag out.
Are you getting hit?
I don't
I'll
have a
be
gun.
down here.
Somebody's in there. I don't have a gun.
Oh,
I gotta
there's
go somewhere
nothing
else.
in there.
I'm here.
There's somebody
I'm
right
getting
where I
one
did
of
that
you,
Bernie stick. That's
Prowler.
why I ran away.
Prowler right here.
SMG here.
Joe's
Yeah.
probably a lot closer. I'm all the way
Yeah,
over here
whoever
now.
gets it.
Alright.
Fuck!
They're in this building that I'm
Alright.
the west
Here's
building.
I'm on
here.
the other side.
Attention.
Oh, he ambushed me, dude. He's on
Fuck!
top of a
Still
fucking
in the-
little.
Alright, I got a wingman. I'm coming.
Good shit. He chased him out.
Oh, it's a full squad.
He's
I
outside
got
fighting
one of
Grim.
them. There's two down here.
Sam, get out of here, buddy. Come on.
He's coming in this room, Grim.
Fuck, man.
This is what
Sam, you owe me $1. You ruined it.
Yeah, that was a crafty
Fucking
bitch.
dickhead. He's coming up, fucking bobbing his head into my fucking controller and shit while I'm playing.
Oh shit. Man,
And
that
then when I
fucking
died,
guy
then
in
he
that
leaves.
room.
It's like he did on purpose. It felt like. Ugh.
I don't think I've ever seen. I don't know. That's a hell of an ambush spot. Right inside the door, there's a fucking cabinet you can get on top of. And he was fucking crouched on top of the door, so I run in and don't see shit. And he starts shooting me in the back.
Pro strats, man. Pro strats.
Mm-hmm.
Wiggity, wiggity, wiggity. Do, 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 do.
I agree. 100%.
Yo, that just reminded me. I need to crank up some hamster dance in this bitch.
Yeah, man.
Hamster dance?
Hardcore hamster dance shit.
Yeah, do that shit, man. It sucks.
Wow, try to stop me.
Keep calm and don't blow for
Yeah, I'm sorry if I took the medic from you, Joe. I didn't know what you were wanting to play. I should have asked, but
Unacceptable. Yo, do you just start a new party?
Yeah, fuck this
Joe?
dude.
is your champion.
Yeah, me and Joe are, I'm tired and so is Joe. We're just going to bed. You gotta put yourself on offline, Joe.
join the BLG.
BLG for life.
Please submit your Yeet application to join BLG.
Yeah, man. Yeet. Application submitted.
Or not, whatever. I mean, as long as we win.
Yeet on the dotted line, bitch.
I just yeeted all over that shit.
There's yeets everywhere. Oh,
Oh shit.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. I'm like, who is picking, whatever this chick's name is, I forget.
a little bit.
Yeah, I picked
Nah.
her because I kind of
You
thought
don't
that
No,
you
it's
were
neither.
doing some different characters.
First blood.
Oh, the
Yeah.
one you are. Electric bitch. I forget her name too.
Watson,
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Definitely
Twatson.
Watson.
You ready? You ready to get murdered?
Yeah, I'm ready to get murdered. I don't
Oh,
have
you see
much.
some shit?
Oh, you're running off
Oh,
ahead
shit.
without us.
You're ahead of us, Grim.
Yeah, I'm trying to get murdered. It doesn't even look looted actually, so. Cool shit.
Well, I'm just continuing to run down the hill. I'm not stopping here. You want to get murdered? Let's do it right.
There you go, Joe. There's a vesty vest.
I got a
over you.
vest.
Oh, well, I'll
Yeah.
take
Oh no, Zero doesn't. That's what's going on.
I'll take that.
Oh, that's what? I thought there was like a hemlock over here.
I don't have. I've got a Spitfire L-Star.
Yeah, I got an L-Star Alternator. Alright, let's keep going and getting murdered. I don't have a bag.
Shmurda
Yeah, I'll-
apply.
Definitely
I
need a
guess-
bag.
Don't have a bag.
Yeah, I got a
What are you
gray
doing?
one.
I saw all these other bags.
Here's
Why
a
am I
gray
picking
one.
them up? I didn't know they had a new one.
Yeah, I assume
I
that
didn't
one
know you
squad was
did need
victorious because I haven't heard the gunfire in a while.
I think it's over at where the shit
Yeah,
always
somebody's
is.
coming
Ooh,
back.
Select fire.
Over
Oh,
to
yeah,
our
where is
west.
that? Oh, I see,
There's
I
light
see.
here. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, let's. You want to skip this
Yeah,
building? We
yeah,
can
yeah.
push right on.
I'm gonna run
Yeah.
through it, but I'm not
Let's
looting
just
it.
go fuck them up, bro.
Ooh.
Taking him out with a decoy.
All right. You ready for a quick ass
Yep.
battle?
I'm going up over here on the.
Bamboozle. Got one
Right over here.
Yep.
There's two of them over there.
Got
Birdman.
that one that you were hitting the grid.
Nice.
Birdman down.
Where's the third?
One more.
Down here, I hear him.
I hear him somewhere.
All right, I got.
Oh, no,
really
it's another
fucked up.
Birdman.
I'm gonna
On
shut
Joe.
up.
On Joe.
Oh yeah, there he
It's
is.
another Birdman. It's a different squad.
Oh, it's a different squad then.
Reloading.
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
dude,
it's all
river,
different
two
squad.
guys in the river. We got Birdman,
Well,
but there's
one's in
one
the
more
box.
kid in the river. Maybe two more kids in the river. Here's Fast Legs.
Here's a purple
His
shield.
shield's broken. He's got 70 health now. Hit him again.
reloading.
Yeah.
Say goodnight, fast bitch.
The whole squad.
We had time for Bonzo, bitch.
And he has perfect guns to steal off his dead body also. I'm loving
Nice.
it. There's a blue hat in that dude's shit.
Do.
Oh, there's somebody coming. They're right here.
All right, go it. Oh, shit. Bro, if you can run, oh my god. Oh, shit.
Yeah, I'm
Nothing
fucking
but a
dead.
scout.
They're all on the left, Joe.
Yeah, there's three of them.
Yeah, that sucked. I didn't get to heal up. I don't have any heals.
Damn. That was the
Whoa.
third fucking squad after we wiped two motherfucking squads, man. Or one and 2/3 anyway. I think there was only 2 kills
Yeah.
in that first one, but
There's only
Basically
4
two-thirds.
kills
Or
total.
2 squads.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Oh man.
oh, that's weird. Didn't we kill 2 kids and then there was another Birdman? Maybe that first Birdman didn't die, and I just thought he did. Could have sworn I downed him. I
Can you
know
hear
I,
me?
did- I downed one. Now I
Can
can.
you
hear
hear
you.
me? Now you can. Okay. My shit went out at the end of that game. Yeah.
I heard you at the end of the game.
Every time it happens, I have to unplug the box. Yeah, well, the fucked up thing is that you can hear me, but I can't hear anything. It's like one way fuck up. So my shit goes silent.
Oh,
So you can hear what I'm saying, but then I can't hear
usually
anything.
usually we can't hear you though. Usually,
No, usually you can. Until I unplug it. You can hear me until I unplug it. It worked until the end of the game, and then that's when I had to unplug it. But I just, right then, I just kept saying over and over because I was wondering how long after I unplug it does it take for you to actually be able to hear me again. Right, Zero, you said when I can't hear you, you can hear me, right?
Breathe easy. Watch your side.
That's what I keep telling
I'm on
myself.
Facebook with
It
Chuck
may
and Bro.
depend. It may depend, really, dude. Like, I can't remember which way it goes, honestly. I think you can hear me and I
definitely
can't hear
one
you.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely when I have a problem it's because I can't hear. I know that 100% because when it
Oh
happens,
well, okay.
I can't hear. I know that much for sure.
I know there's a lot of times that I don't hear you for several seconds, and then you've had to.
That's when
reboot
I
it.
unplug it and have to, yeah. I have to unplug
Yeah.
the box and the controller out of the box. Or no, the headset out of the,
Copy that.
and then replug the
Oh,
two things back in.
it's at that side,
Oh my
I
god.
didn't mean to
the
be medic
north
again.
side of it.
All right.
Where do you want to go? Oh, over here.
All right, I'm gonna go to that corner of it. Oh, okay.
Alright, then I'll land in the other
Okay.
thing, is over here.
Mozambique. Better run for cover, bitch.
There's a shirt in here. No gun yet. Alright, got an Eva.
Coming for it.
And a Bernie stick.
Guns? I have fucking P2020.
I got a Mozambique.
Fuck, I'm going into the danger zone. I need guns.
Yeah, me too.
I can drop an Eva for one of yous.
Yeah, I'll take. I just got a peacekeeper.
Okay.
Round 1. Beginning ring countdown.
Yeah, I got RS-45, so I got something
There's another Eva.
somewhat real. You know, I'll definitely take that over that other shit.
Oh, right
There's
here.
a white
Oh, I hear
White people
people.
in the intersection?
heavy mag. Hope you like
You got the medic
grenades,
down?
bitch.
Oh shit.
Coming.
Oh shit! I'm getting shot from like a sniper. Oh,
Oh, there's many
somebody's
people
up
in here.
top
Many
over here.
people.
Joe, you're gonna die out. Or Zero, you're gonna die out there. Yeah.
Okay, I'm coming back in.
Whoever's out there, fucking
Oh, I
instantly
got
fucking
killed by a
killed me.
grenade.
Yeah, another squad just
I was coming back into the
hear me
building,
now. I can't
and
hear
somebody.
anything. Just show
Yeah, we can hear you. Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
me.
Yeah.
Did you hear me when I said if you can
Yeah.
hear me now?
Yeah.
For the future, yeah. So yeah, that's when it went out, and then I unplugged the shit. It's so fucking annoying. I don't know. Could be the headset, could be the box. Because sometimes before the fucked up, where you know how it lights up when you
Yeah.
mute, it isn't working. So, and then I reset my Xbox and it worked. So, I'm not 100% sure which it is.
Does it fix itself every time you reset the Xbox, or that happened one time?
Usually it's not that bad that the whole box is shorted and I have to reset the Xbox. Usually I just unplug the box and then the headset. Probably just the box. If I unplug it, would fix
Me
it.
there. All good with me.
Which still, it's shady. Like,
Yeah, it could be the connection where the box goes in, because this box doesn't work on my blue controller. If I use the blue controller, I have to just plug the 3.5mm jack into the controller, because the connection for this box into that is bad. So,
oh yeah.
so it could be that. I mean, it could be one of the prongs is fucked up, either in the box or in the controller.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I want to do some of that.
One or the other.
Skulltown Part 2, The Reckoning.
Oh fuck yeah! Where you want to go? The first drop area?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alright.
Skulltown Part
Right,
Doo
left.
Doo The Reckoning.
Enough lying around. We drunk.
Alright, I'll land further in.
Go away, Sam. Come on, buddy.
All right, I'll
Decoys
go
are
on
broke.
that third
Pretty
corner of the
sweet.
triangle.
Yeah, I'm gonna land down here and work my way back.
Where do you see a triangle?
Well, Joe marked something. and
Zero.
One of you marked a red spot, one of you marked an orange spot, and I was making a.
Oh, you
Isosceles
make
triangle.
the triangle with your. Oh, with
Yeah.
your. Say, okay. I was gonna say all I see is squares. I'm just
But
kidding.
then somebody marked something else, and it
Don't
turned
get
into a
offended.
square.
No,
no,
yeah.
just-
Alright. Somebody's like right in there. Oh shit!
Oh yeah, I
Is
hear.
that blue
Yep,
vest?
yep.
Fuck that dude. I don't have a gun, so.
Oh, he ran
I'm
out the
just
other door.
throwing shit and running.
I'm trying to chase it. I'm trying to chase
oh,
it.
wait,
Oh shit, you guys are
shit.
all.
I got some gunnage. I'm coming. I'm coming.
He's just running like crazy. I've almost got him.
Alright, remember this is where
oh,
we're
no,
Oh,
this is
it's a
up
full
in the
squad,
sky.
full squad, full squad.
Yeah.
There's a caustic in this
There's
building.
somebody on the
Oh,
roof.
caustic trap.
There
Caustic trap.
was somebody on the roof.
Oh,
shit.
there's a robot over here.
Too many motherfuckers after it.
Oh no!
People over there.
Yeah, this is yet another
Got
squad.
that
No.
guy or no?
I'm grenading the
Oh
door.
my god.
No.
Never mind. I was gonna rush him. I need to heal.
Yeah, I don't have any. Oh, here, I'll throw out a health bot. I don't know
I'm
where
over here.
Joe's at.
I'm good.
Oh, I
I'm
see
just
you.
gonna
I
heal
see
in
you.
this little corner. Is there a vest in
Dude,
here?
this is chaos.
Ah, come on, vest. Vest it. Give me a vest. No fucking vest. I've. Do you need cells? I have
Yeah,
cells.
I don't have
I
any
need a
heals.
vest also.
Pass me that sugar.
Oh, you're healing, bitch. Ah, shit.
Yeah, I couldn't
Oh,
find where
shit,
you were
we're
at.
getting
Oh, these
lazy.
dudes on the roof. Back
Yeah,
up.
I
into
have
the
no
corner.
light bullets. I'm gonna have to go to the L-SAR, which I have just a little
Here,
bit.
I got
Alright,
30 energy.
I'm exiting.
Energy ammo here.
Shit, I'm almost fucking dead again. God damn.
Who's
Okay.
same guy
Laser
attacking you?
Shit.
Oh god! Oh god!
Watch
he got
out,
me
Joe.
too.
Oh, what the fuck?
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't know where this guy came
Yeah,
from.
I had no idea he was even in here.
Oh, I'm out of bullets.
Man, there was like 50, 11
Yeah,
people
there was a
in there.
lot of people.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I guess there's mo better people playing on the weekends.
It's still fun though. Yeah. Well, I feel like everybody's off nowadays. I don't know.
Well, tonight's definitely a different experience than last night or the night before. So,
Yeah, true. I mean, we are kind of landing more in hot spots too. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll be right back.
Not gonna lie, I'm pretty good at this. Okay, I do lie, but not this time.
Ready to go. Seen?
I accept the challenge.
I accept the challenge.
This is your champion.
Grim stepped away
Yeah.
a sec, didn't he?
No, I didn't. I've been here the whole time. I didn't even know.
Oh.
What are you talking about? Why are you telling lies? Yeah.
Because it's funny.
I didn't want. I was going to do a late jump. I thought you stepped away.
no.
I guess this shit. Yes. No. Let's go to this. Let's go to this. Let's go to Turd City.
Turd City.
Moving up.
All right. Turd Town.
Turd.
See anybody else? Yes. One other squad. It looks like. That's it.
Let's polish this turd.
They're also kind of late, so.
Oh, yep, one's on me. I'm running to get a gun.
I got no gun. I got no gun.
I polished the first bitch. Shiny
Nice.
as shit.
Oh,
I
Birdman
got
over
one
here.
gun. I'm coming towards. Oh wait.
It don't look like he's
Okay.
got a gun.
I
He's
need
running
health.
away.
Robot up here.
Are they up there? Alright, I'm coming up. I'm coming up.
Where'd he go? Where'd he
No, I
fucking
hear
go?
him. Oh, over there. Oh shit, here's the other two
Somebody's
people.
getting somebody up over here. I can hear them.
Polish the other guy, but I'm like really dead now.
Oh, he's almost
yeah,
polished.
Now I'm down.
Oh, there's too many fucking people. Yeah, there's two squads.
Yeah,
so
it's
this
two
may
other
fuck me
squads, yeah.
up.
Yeah, if you could
There's several
heal and
dudes crawling.
get one of us
Yeah.
up,
Yeah,
there's
no.
so many
Oh
motherfuckers.
my God.
There's
I'm gonna try to crawl
a guy
down this
spying
shit.
on us right here. Oh, dude, getting his buddy up right here outside your building, Joe.
Oh yeah, right in the corner. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, smoke, bitch.
Oh, it's ranked. I should have got those kills.
Oh well, we'll get them.
Yeah, go back and get
I
him if
have
you want
no
to.
clue.
Oh,
There's
they're
still-
here. Oh shit.
Yeah, I need their shit. Oh, they got me. I didn't even
I'm just
Oh,
marking
they
it so you know
accidentally
where he's
hit
at.
me.
Oh,
shooting at you. Man.
yeah, you
I
had
hope
no
I killed the
chance.
guy
That
I
was-
downed.
That fuckers took us by surprise. Oh, it didn't give you the
Nah, I gave Grim the kill, so I guess I killed the guy he downed.
I don't even know. Oh yeah, okay.
No, I didn't get his kill. I got the kill for the guy that I killed.
Well, I killed.
And then I downed another guy, but I didn't get my second down.
Oh, he
kill
must
either,
have killed.
just like
Yeah, he
you.
killed the
Yeah.
guy you downed though. He downed the guy that was getting him up, but then killed the guy.
Yeah,
that,
I killed somebody
was still
who
down
somebody
or
else
something.
downed.
Hold on, wait, you lost me.
I killed somebody that somebody else downed. Is what happened.
Who's on first?
Then that might have been mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right. I downed 2 people and I did not finish either of them. So
Yeah,
that's
that's what I
happened.
was saying. You're like, no, I killed that guy. I got the kill for the guy I killed.
Oh, I thought you were saying
No, I killed the
got
guy
a
I
kill
killed.
for someone you downed.
I didn't take credit for nobody else's kill. I killed the guy I
That's
killed.
what
Nobody else gave me anything.
I thought you were
I've
saying,
earned
I got a
everything,
kill for someone
every
you
step
downed.
of my life. I had to walk uphill both directions
Finally, you're
to
making
and from
sense.
hell.
Both directions were uphill, and it was basically like a cliff face. I had to
It
basically
snowed
fucking climb
every
a mountain.
motherfucking day.
Rock, a sheer rock face in the snow and hail. It was fucking ridiculous, dude. But
And
I
then
did it.
when they
and
wanted
that's
me
how
to
I
get
got
into
that
school,
kill.
I had to take a razor and open the bottom of my feet every day before I could go and learn English.
Well, originally they wouldn't even let me in unless I carved true into my arm with the razor, so I did it.
See,
Just
for
to
me,
get
they made me
into school.
carve True and BTS in the other arm because I had to be real gangster.
But then the pediatrician just didn't really enjoy that.
No,
whole
the pediatrician
scenario.
was very upset, and I'm like, "Yo, bitch! First of all, I'm like 17. I shouldn't be seeing a pediatrician anymore." She's like, "You need to take that up with your mom."
I also saw my pediatrician until I was like
Yeah.
an adult. Yeah, until I was like probably
Yeah.
19 or 20.
Yeah, until the pediatrician's like, Miss Quirk, you can't come here anymore.
Like, please stop coming here.
It's time.
she's like giving you physical.
Yeah. Yes.
It was a guy though.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
really
Mine was a
girl?
chick.
Oh shit. Oh, that's too bad.
This is yeah,
Yeah.
mine was a guy, and he told me to keep coming back just
He's
for
like-
physicals.
I'll give them to you for free.
As long as you keep
Yeah.
coming get them, I'll give them to you.
RE45 here.
4-5 in this bitch and a hat. I need a shirt. Oh, blue shirt. Here's a white shirt. Is there somebody
Oh,
else?
dude's coming
wait,
in the
down there.
west
You see
side.
that bitch? Oh,
Yep.
don't let him get away with this. Who the fuck is he?
I got
Get
him
him.
with
Oh.
one shot from my.
Yay, dome. Yeah, I fucked him up a little bit. Oh, there he is. Who the hell, homo?
Yeah, suck a shot. Shield battery in
Yeah,
there.
man, that's where I was
Go.
heading, bro.
There's a shirt in here still.
I mean, shield battery in this blue box. This
Oh.
dude that just went.
Yeah, I need a real. Oh, I'm being shot at from across the street. Across the street to the west.
Yeah.
What? Who the fuck do they think they
Broke the
are?
shield of that fucker from across the street. Two of
They're
them.
making me angry.
Hit another one for 30.
I think they're on
He
the roof.
jumped the wall. Looked like a mirage jumping the wall.
No, dude, they're over here. I know it's.
I'm
that
still hearing
fucking audio
somebody.
is
There's
confusing.
definitely yeah.
Oh,
they're
okay, it's a
not
third
fucking
guy,
over there.
okay.
Yeah, fuck man.
Sorry, that was two guys ran here.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh god damn! They came back. There's a whole squad there, Joe.
Yeah, we're all dead. Oh no, Joe.
Now I'm dead. My team doesn't die without me. We all die together.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still hearing something. I shouldn't just jump the wall and run after that.
Yeah, sorry, I saw two guys running. Is why I thought. You know how the audio is in this shit sometimes.
Yeah. Hard to pinpoint. I know, yeah, it's hard for some people. So I know I'll see my headphones. I don't even think they're really that good. I mean, I don't know. My sister bought them, but they're not name brand. But I do know that sometimes I'll be watching other people, like when I'm a box, and I can tell like exactly where somebody is, but like maybe you won't. So maybe I can hear good with them. Maybe they're good headphones. I don't know. They're like some
Yeah.
weird Chinese fucking shit brand. Is what I assumed.
All that matters.
My sister bought them for me because her dog chewed up my mono. The one that comes with the Xbox is like on one ear. I was like trying to use that for life because I don't like not being able to hear anything when I'm playing. It's kind of annoying, but definitely is better for the game. You can hear where people are.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got like a decent Turtle Beach headset that's supposed to have surround sound
okay.
features,
Yeah,
but
Turtle
it's
Beach is
very
decent. My brother had a Turtle Beach box. That mysterious box that we've been talking about, the trapezoid controller shit.
yeah.
Yep.
But even though with the alleged surround sound, when they're close to you, it's not
Alleged.
always easy to tell where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not always. It doesn't work as advertised all the time.
I'm gonna hit the part that's like to the back, so you guys. Yeah, oh, you broke off.
All right. I'm going to the opposite
Like-
side.
That bin there.
I'm going to
That's
this
it.
bit.
Straight down. Can't get any more risque. Oh, apparently we're alone.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, those boxes
Yeah,
are
I'll take that
yours. I
shit.
hit the pads.
I don't really want this Sentinel. There's like 2 white vests here.
Yeah, I got a Sentinel myself.
Would you say box yours?
Yeah, I hit a couple pads.
So,
I wasn't going for any boxes. I was leaving them for y'all.
oh wait, so you? Then who else was hitting the
Yeah.
boxes? Zero? I thought that was
Yeah.
you there.
Now
Oh,
Zero's taking the healing chick, and he's not giving her back.
Oh, dude.
You can
Yeah,
say
sorry,
bitch,
bro.
though. You can
I don't
say
mean to
bitch.
keep.
I won't turn you into the.
Well, I mean, they can hear you keep saying it, so that's good enough.
At least somebody's saying it.
You know you want to say bitch.
I need a bag.
Say it, man.
Ooh, yeah, I need that bag. Is what I need.
Dude, I can't find another gun anywhere. Come on. There we go. Oh, blue body
Yeah.
armor up here at the top.
I don't have a
Joe.
bag.
There's a
either.
white bag in that building you just ran through.
Purple shotgun bolt, blue stack shit. Alright, yeah, I'll grab that.
I need it.
In the middle of the shit. Alright. Got it. Shank ya.
I see ya, senor.
Wow.
See, senor.
Like seeing imaginary Bernie sticks and shit. Man.
Helmet here. Level 2.
Oh, yeah, I'll take.
Ah, nah, yeah. If you don't need it, I'll
Alright,
take it.
I'll-
If you do
yeah, I'll
and
bring
if
it
you
down to
have
you.
carry it, I'll replace some shit for it. Just so I don't have to run up there.
Joe, there's that blue
Yeah,
armor
that's-
up there
That's what I'm
outside
here
bin.
for. Here it is.
Oh, okay.
1 and 2 over here.
Could use
You're
a
taking that for the sniper.
choke for my peacekeeper.
Okay.
New kill leader.
And
Look for them.
Oh, I thought you were
Yeah, I
bringing
am.
something.
Where are you?
Wasn't that you? Oh. You just ran up to me
No,
like
that's
face to
Zero.
face and then turned around and ran away. No,
Yeah,
this
that's
is me.
Zero that
I
you're
was the
that
guy-
you're talking about.
Oh, that's Zero. I'm just used to you being Lifeline, I guess.
I'm like, that's Zero. Like, no, it's
I was like,
me.
I thought you were saying,
I'm
like-
right here.
Because I thought you were saying like, no, I ran up to Zero. I didn't run up to you. And I was like, no, that was definitely not Zero. That was me ran
Here,
up to.
right here.
I'm just way off.
Optics here. Close range.
One
I
to
dropped it
dose.
back there, behind you.
Oh, shank you.
Oh, is this a choke? Is that
Can
a
you
choke?
select
No, not a choke.
fire? If any of you fellas see one?
No choke. No choke. I'll take all the shotgun bullets. Sure, why not?
Prowler SMG here.
Purpley armor. Here's a choke.
Ooh, nice. I got a white heavy mag. No one needs, right? I'm gonna drop this shit.
I'm good.
And I got some heavy ammo I can give since I'm not gonna be picking it up. Unless you don't need it, Grim.
I'm good.
I'm dropping this 100 heavy ammo in the waterfall.
Should I go?
Care package being delivered.
Care package coming in.
Extended heavy. Thermite grenade here.
Blue heavy mag, Bernie stick.
I'm gonna go down the hill here.
Ooh, fuck yeah.
Optics here.
There's a 3x. Somebody said, oh, 2 3x's. You guys still use that shit?
Yeah,
or
not for the
not?
guns I got.
Oh, yeah, I can
Okay,
use
you like
3X.
the 2x?
Backpack here.
I'm
Level
not
2.
sure. Oh,
There's 2
yeah.
of them, so.
Yeah, it depends on the guns I got.
Oops.
Never mind. Damn me a cool guy bag right over here.
And the white light mag, which is okay. I'd like a cooler one, but 301 up here.
R301 here.
Shield cell here.
You know, I should
Yeah,
probably
blue
use. I'm
heavy
gonna
mag.
pick up that 301. Should take something for range.
Yeah, I like to do a 301 for range.
Check out over there.
There's zoom shit.
Extended light mag here. Level 1. Flatline here.
I can say a portal in a second. Are you coming here for the flatline?
Portal clock.
Yeah.
I'm gonna set this portal.
Barrel stabilizer here.
Blue stabilizer. I might need that shit.
Placing a portal.
Oh shit, there's a zip line here.
Joe, you can have it, but if you don't want it, I'm pinging it, but I'll
Nah,
unping it if
go
you
ahead.
need it.
Placed.
Did one of you guys leave this building? Because it seems empty, but I feel like the doors were closed.
I didn't.
Um,
I ran straight down here.
Optics here.
No, I don't think I did that one.
Yeah, I feel like somebody was here. It's just you were.
Light ammo here.
Wait, you set your portal from one zip line to
Yeah,
another?
well, I was setting it for 0, and then once I started, then I realized that there was a zip line.
Oh. Yeah. Still made
It's
it
called a
fast on the
backup.
zip line still. Yeah, the backup. The backup.
Oh, there's a drone over where I'm at, close to where I'm at.
Oh
I hear
shit,
it.
okay.
Yep, it's right there.
Okay.
Oh, damn it.
Oh,
Kids.
Zero, get out of there if you can. Wait
Come
for us.
in.
I'm close, so just come towards me and I'll back you up.
Yeah, lead
Oh,
them
damn it,
into,
drone. Where are you, bitch?
lead 'em into our bullets.
Yeah, fuck your drone. They're right up there.
Drone's
They
blowing
jumped.
the wa-
They're.
I hear him.
Throw a thermite grenade.
Oh, they're above you on the rocks.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
dead.
shit.
I threw the burn
How do we
stick
even
on
get
them,
up
but
there?
That made me fucking die. I
I'm
watched
dead.
them
I'm
climbing.
down.
I've been down.
Yeah, God. Oh my God. Man, that ridge is a bitch. I don't know if I've ever been in a fight there before or not. Maybe. There's no way to get up to that ridge from below unless you're a robot.
Yeah, I saw them running that shit, so I tried to burn them, but I died before I threw my second one.
Yeah, they just had such a position on us. Alright, I'm getting off medic. I'm
yeah.
getting off medic.
Can you zip line set in a portal or no?
I don't think so.
No. And what about open doors? Because I feel like when you're in the void, at least, you can open doors. Is that true?
When you're in the void, like when you're going through it.
No, like in the void is like the tactical escape maneuver thing.
Oh no, you can open it
Not
with
the
that.
ultimate. So you can do it in that. You can open doors.
Yeah,
I
you
thought-
used to
I saw videos. of people
not be
being
able to.
do
I think
it.
that changed.
Only looking good in the ring, but I look good.
Oh, you're Mirage, yeah. Okay.
He's just fucking everything up.
God damn it! God damn it!
I don't know if you were serious or not. Whether you meant to do it or not.
I just hate the way this.
I don't fear him.
God damn, sorry guys.
You're
My fucking
ruining
bad.
everything,
I don't know what the
Zero.
fuck.
Oh, that's it. I'm going back to
Yeah.
robot. Picks Mirage.
Sorry, guys.
When I see you.
You know what we're doing? We're doing some badass shit, motherfucking shit. I'm gonna guess
Can we catch that?
that we should jump now.
If you have
Fuck
a
yeah, we can catch anything. So I remember when the game first came out, to be the first anywhere, you had to fly like a million fucking miles. So we got good at flying far. Oh shit, I don't know, man. I thought the ship was gonna, so I kind of started going like another way.
Yeah, I think
Start
we're gonna
dropping.
make it.
I'm not 100% sure. No.
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not making it. No, no,
airfield,
no. Oh
I
my
guess.
god, I'm gonna fall. No, I don't know about you guys, but I fell into the fucking
No,
water.
yeah, I turned to airbase.
5250 damage.
Oh shit! Hey, I think it's gonna let us recover your
So my
shit.
box, yeah, my box.
Oh, enemy.
Oh shit, hold on.
Damn it!
Oh, why didn't you
She's
guys tell
zipping
me
away,
you were in
she's
there?
zipping
Zero
away.
did say that. It's-
Ooh, I got the
didn't?
bitch
Oh,
off the
yeah.
zip line. I don't know if it killed her, but it downed her. Oh,
I
she
didn't hear
downed on
everybody
the other
saw
side. She made it
after
to
I said I was
safety.
a box.
Damn it! She's stealing my kill from me right now. Well, that's okay. I'm. Oh shit! Enemies back in airbase.
And the ship's landing here too.
Opening fire. Shots fired. Reloading.
Oh, I'm a dead man. Oh. Oh, there's two of them, Joe.
Oh my god!
Maybe three.
Oh, this is not going well. This is not a
Motherfucker. I'm gonna smoke a quick cigarette. I'll be back
not a thing
shortly.
that's working well.
All right.
All right, I'm gonna go smoke a quick heroin, and I'll be back. shortly.
Are you gonna take a break?
I'm gonna go get a drink, stretch my limbs, get this anger out
Okay.
of me, and then I'll be back.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna
Alright.
take a break too then.
Break time, break time, break time, break time, break time. Might as well put the thing on. Alright, I'm back. If y'all are back. Alright. It's dark out. Make $1 million now. Yo. Nothing much. Waiting on zero. We all took a little break. Yeah, so I'm having a lot of trouble with this thing I was gonna make for Janina. She's not coming together like I hoped. Yeah. Just not coming together the way I was hoping. I have such a hard time drawing people. Nah, I couldn't find a Bitmoji for her, but no, I don't think I'm friends with her on Snapchat. But like, I didn't want to waste the paper that I was working on, so I flipped it over on the other side and I started drawing Pokemon. So I wish she liked Pokemon. Yeah, it tells them that you took a picture of it. Yeah, weirdo. Yeah, I'm like, Jolly said he needed some new material to jerk off to, so he was snapping the picture of you. Like he. Yeah. Pokemon from the first 150. I mean, sure you are. In what group? Yeah, well, I mean, we didn't do anything. I think we went to a show in New York. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you definitely sound mad about it, though. Sound super mad about it. Yep. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. Nothing is taken. My schedule's never taken into consideration of anything. I mean, they want to hang out, they just hang out. Yeah, they would just talk to Kim, and if they came over, they would just come over. Yeah, I would find out the day of also. Be like, so Nicole and Janina are gonna come over. I mean, they've only come over like, I don't know, less than a handful of times. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be a thing if you, even if you like, were still talking to Janina to invite Nicole personally. Like, you don't have to, you wouldn't have to go through Janina for that. You know, just guys are all friends. You just reach out to Nicole and say, "Hey, friendo." No. Right, she's not, yeah, I mean, if she's not putting the effort to make it a thing like that, then she wouldn't get upset about, it. You know? Her biggest complaint was, like, you wanted to spend too much time together, was her problem. Yeah. Well, like, reaching out and texting her every day, that was one of the big problems. Yeah. I'm just saying that's what she said to whatever. Yeah. Yeah, she's very independent. She's very, very about, like, her friends and her family and hanging out. I mean, like, and not being tied down. That's also why it didn't work out with her and Drew, because Drew wanted to talk to her. And if you go through her Facebook, well, maybe it was the always trying to do something. Since you guys didn't do anything, you were always trying to make plans. I don't know, but it was like, it was the. No, she was under the impression that you wanted to do stuff. Well, right, but she was, because from what I was told, yeah, it was, yeah, it was. And this didn't, I didn't hear it from her. I mean, I never talked to her about it. I talked to her about it, like, before anything, the first, like, in the beginning when we went to that show in New York. We talked about it over drinks. No. That was the only time that I talked to her about it. Everything else, I didn't hear this stuff from her. Yeah, because I mean, things would. I said this before. Things would have to stay the way they are for the foreseeable future, and then maybe when you guys, I don't know, reach a point, she would change and be more invested in the relationship. But oh no, yeah, all right.
Hello, you know my voice, don't you? Well, just this once, let me tell you something without you asking me first. Now you can complete the sentence. census online. Just go to 2020census.gov. The census cannot share your response. More importantly, you can help inform how billions in funding will be spent each year on things in your community. Complete the census online, by phone, or by mail. Shape your future. Start here at 2020census.gov. Paid for by U.S. Census Bureau.
The COVID-19 pandemic may be the defining crisis of our lifetime. That's why Red Nose is taking immediate steps to support children in poverty. But we need your help.
They don't always know where the next meal is going to come from.
If we don't act now, the long-term effects on children will be catastrophic.
We need to change that, and we need to change that.
Stand with us. Give now. Together. We can change the story for children. Donate today at rednosegate.org/donate.
Here we go.
No gun in the usual spot here.
I got a
blue armor
sweet
over
ass
here.
Sentinel.
Mozambique.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I got a Sentinel too. Fuck, give me something better. Oh, sweet, a Mozambique. I feel better now.
Oh
As you
damn, you
should.
rolling in the shit, bro.
I got a 99.
Oh yeah. Oh, and here's the
I just
charge
dropped all
rifle.
my Sentinel shit if you want it. You can definitely have that.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Somebody
while I'm
wants to
carrying
get that
it.
there, you can.
And
Drop my Mozambique.
yeah,
so
go
I
for
got
it. Go for it.
bullets for your Mozambique. Oh,
Where's
you at?
Oh, I'm okay on it. I'm gonna try to
I'll
get something
take
better.
that if
than
you
that.
don't-
Where's all that Sentinel shit, Grim, in that room over there? In that fucking like over there.
Over there. Yeah, it's a white clip and a stock.
Got some sniper
Brattle,
ammo.
brattle, brattle.
And ammo.
Oh, good shit. Okay.
Where'd that 2X go? Did Zero pick it up?
I'll snatch that. Here, you can have it. For,
Not remember where I left it.
hold on, just
No,
wait,
you're
I'll
good.
bring- I'll
You're good.
give it to you in a sec. Alright, you damn it.
You are good.
Actually, hey,
bro.
I'm picking up this scout. I'll be glad to give it
No,
to you.
you won't be
Here's a
glad to
3X.
give it to me. You'll
Alright.
be glad to keep it.
Be glad to keep it. Hey, I will trade it for that 3X though if you don't
Somebody
want
out here, I think.
I'm just
No,
pinging
I'm
it
not
to-
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the 3X can go on anything.
Sam,
I got.
fucking go away, dude. Please.
Oh yeah, dudes.
Man.
Dudes to the south of where of the building
Good.
Grim is in. Oh shit! I broke
Yeah,
the
there's
shield
two
on
of
the
'em?
fast legs. I'm down. There's 2 or 3 of them out here. Oh shit!
Oh,
They're converging on Joe.
there's 2 thick guys, and a fast legs went over the building.
Those
Caustic is killing me.
Oh,
good try,
yeah.
shit. That was cray cray.
Rape action activated.
I didn't even hear those motherfuckers. Like, in, well, I guess they were far enough away not to hear them, but still, that was a pain in the ass.
Mira, body shield here. Level 2.
This is turning into some shit, man.
Oh, Joe, you're a. Did you already
shit.
make it to
Yeah.
Silver 3 and then that?
I'm actually gonna hop off some of something, but I'll talk to you guys
Alright.
probably tomorrow, right?
Alright, sounds good.
Adios.
See you, dude.
Later.
You want? I guess I'll take it off ranked, unless you want to. Oh no, I don't know. You want to just play regular because like in Silver,
Yeah,
we'll be
yeah, we can
losing,
play regular. That's fine.
be losing points.
That's
I probably just got another handful.
yeah,
in me
yeah.
or
We can
something.
stop whenever you're ready to stop. I'm annoyed with the game anyway. I mean, I'm down to keep playing, but I
Yeah, I
am,
like.
I mean, don't feel like you're doing me any
I am
favors.
for now. Yeah. No, I understand. Yeah, I need to get something to eat in a little bit, but also I feel like I've been sleeping so shitty, and like I kind of waste my day and then get on Apex and don't do much constructive. I feel like I ought to get off a little earlier
Well,
sometime.
don't stop
you know?
wasting your day. Do something constructive.
Well, no, I don't mean to say that I'm wasting time hanging out. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like I'm playing games and I'm
Yeah,
fucking
no.
around. I ought to be getting up earlier.
Yeah, like in the daytime before you get on Apex, do something constructive.
Yeah, that's what I
Right?
should be doing. That's the theoretical. That's the best time.
Yeah, like I mean, I feel
what it
better
should
if
be
like if
done.
I get up at like my sleep schedule's messed up because one night I stayed up till 5 a.m. so I could go to Walmart in the middle of the night and try to get a bunch of stuff, but they closed because they changed their hours with what's going on. So I tried
Oh,
to
yeah,
go
right.
be sneaky, go like when there wouldn't be a lot of people at the store, and then that fucked my sleep schedule up. But I was getting up like 8 o'clock. Because with work I'd get up earlier, but I was sleeping in a bit, get up at 8 o'clock since I've been off, and then that one day like fucked everything up. But like I feel better if I'm up. I'd rather be up early doing stuff like moving around, even if I'm just like drawing or whatever. I feel more productive, and then if I take a nap in the afternoon, then I feel if I like sleep till noon or 1 o'clock.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm having trouble. I guess I'm slightly depressed right now because I don't have a job, and
Yeah.
like I'm looking, you know, but like not a lot of
I
stuff
just
is
got
coming
post.
up, and it's like,
Yeah, no, I get that.
okay,
100% I get that.
I'm looking, I'm coming to you. Yeah, and like so, like you know, and there's nothing. I mean, I am looking, but not a lot's coming up, and it's like I know I don't have anything urgent to get up for. And I'm also like I got strep throat. I've injured my shoulder a little bit, and like I don't know. I'm just like fuck. I'm gonna just lay in bed a while, and then I get up, and then I don't do anything, or very little, you know. And then when I get like feeling like it's time to fucking get up and do something, I'm gaming, which I love gaming, but like then I'm staying on gaming for like 4 hours or something, you know. And it's like
Pulse came from that building, I think.
I don't know. I need to get up earlier.
Yeah,
You're
no,
right, yeah.
oh shit, yeah, they're on the first floor here. One's down. Oh, I'm about to go down.
Another one's down. Oh, a third one is. Third one is
What are you
right on the
doing,
corner
teammate?
here. He's in this. He's in this little corner on the. He's getting his buddy up, I think, or he's. Yeah.
Oh, that's a grenade. He's getting him
He's
up.
not on the stairs right now. Oh yeah, yeah.
Don't worry
Man,
about it. Oh,
good
teammate's
ears.
coming. Sorry, I gotta loot and make sure teammate doesn't get anything good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you need like light ammo or
Yeah, he
anything?
didn't have any part in it.
Oh, he's getting you up.
I
Cool.
think I'm good.
I didn't think you would do that.
Yeah, that's rare. Is there like a white armor in one of those? Actually, I'm gonna go up top. And,
I'm picked up a bunch of energy I don't need.
Energy ammo here.
I got some heals for you. I'm the healing chickie. Somebody's up. Oh, that's our teammate. Okay.
oh, that was hard. Yeah.
Where are you at?
I'm right here. I'm beside you.
Deploying health drone.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have asked for the fucking help, bro. I don't know
Do
why
you
I
need
didn't think of
bullets or
that.
anything?
No, I'm good on ammo.
Alright.
Got a hop up here. Hammer point. Just giving my shields a recharge.
If you see a white armor or any kind of armor, I'm gonna go to the to this building.
Alright.
I found an armor.
Yeah, but no, I definitely know, like, I've had depression issues and stuff, most of my life. So I get, like, not doing stuff. And, like, it's good for
Yeah,
you
me
to,
too.
like,
Off and on. you know.
realize that. Because, like, so much of my life, like, would do, I'd be depressed and I'd do drugs and stuff and like whatever, and people would be like, oh, it's because you're not sleeping and you're doing drugs and you're not
Sure.
even trying to like get a job and stuff. And it's like, no, I'm depressed, so that's why I'm not even like looking, because like I'm hating life so much right now.
Oh yeah, I've been there too. Yeah, I've been there too. You know, honestly, like the last good job. Oh, here's a blue. Well, he's already got one, so he's not even going to be chasing it. There's a Spitfire here too. But yeah. The last job I held for like a long time, like more than 3.5 years. Like, dude, I went into that job with very low confidence. I was like really nervous about it, but I just like forced myself to do it. And then when you're into it for a week or two, it's like, oh, okay, this is nice. You know, this is what I need to be doing. And I mean, I am looking for work right now, honestly, and I'm ready to force myself to get up again. I mean, you know, I worked for UPS in January, and it was okay. It was kind of fun, you know, even though it was a sucky sleep schedule. But yeah, but at the same time, when you don't have
Ooh,
one,
somebody in here?
kind of depressed. And it's like, I'm with you.
Oh, Birdman just hit a special.
Good kill.
Just giving my shields a recharge.
Oh, gosh, they Birdman and
Bags
Bang
down.
climbed up into the room that we were in. I'm trying to. Oh, I can't even see where she's at through the fire. She's. Oh God, there's more than. Badass. Way to go.
Yep.
Dude, you got 5 kills?
Yeah,
Sweet.
man.
But yeah, so being kind of depressed about that shit makes me want to lay in bed longer than I should. And it's not helping me, you know, and I'm trying to adjust it, but shit, you know, it takes a little time.
Yeah.
And with everything fucking closed and having cabin fever, it fucking sucks penises.
Yep, definitely does. I get that.
And it's not even my penis.
Somebody else's penis.
Phoenix Kitty.
Alright, where's the respawn? Respawn's right here. Oh, it's even closer than the one I was going to. Nice.
Yeah, it's a convenient one.
Shit, I should have got you back before I did all that. I'm sorry.
No, it's and you don't have any shields right now. I'm sure
Yeah.
you
Oh
know.
shit, somebody's here.
Yeah, sometimes it's best to. Oh shit! Our buddy's coming towards you. Oh shit! No guns.
Shit, you're already too far as a second. Drop a flat line.
Punching this bitch. Oh goddamn smoke.
Shit, I got flanked. Damn it, man.
Yeah, we were just surrounded.
But at least it wasn't boring.
Ooh, good damage. Good kills. Man, that's a lot of kills in a short amount of time. It's a lot of kills anyway.
Yeah, I was enjoying that Spitfire.
Oh, that was with the
Yeah,
Spitfire?
I
Nice.
definitely should have.
Yeah, I like the Spitfire
that.
pretty well, too. When I'm the lobby leader, I get the Burger King crown. You remember those freaking little
Yes,
paper
I do.
crowns? You remember the McDonald's ashtrays when they used to have ashtrays? Like
No,
little
I don't.
aluminum-
They used to give them out to kids.
Yeah, I was really small when they still had them, I think. They probably used to have like fucking glass ashtrays in the McDonald's. It's kind of funny to think of like going to McDonald's and your parents like smoking up a
It's
pack.
crazy. Like when you see like a period show from like that time frame, and they're like doctors are smoking and shit, and it's just like,
Yeah.
whereas like it's just like, it's crazy that like
Yeah.
how little that they, I guess, knew about it, that they allowed ridiculous things to happen.
Might learn a thing or two.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to watch like Dragnet, like the old Dragnet when it would be on TV Land or Nick
Yeah.
and On or whatever, and like the cops in it were constantly smoking. You know, it's probably like part of their sponsorship
Yeah.
for the show. It's like Winston's. That fucking show Dragnet. They are talking to this dude that's like dealing acid to kids or something,
I say relax.
and like, yeah, that looks good. And like, they're arguing with him over drug use or something, and like,
Lying around. We drop it.
Joe Friday, like, have
A
you ever seen
long
Dragnet?
time ago, long time ago.
Yeah, well, you know, there's the one guy that's real deadpan and stuff. I know, you know, I'm sure it's
Yeah.
a vague memory, but like Joe Friday, the fucking cop, he's like super deadpan in every fucking thing he delivers. He's like, marijuana's the match, heroin's the fuse, LSD's the bomb. I just thought this was funny shit. There's an L
I just
start.
saw a pulse go off. I don't think it was our teammate.
Alright.
Oh shit, I need to swap.
You don't have a scout, do you?
Yeah, I
Picked
do
up a double
actually.
tap.
Yeah, those out.
Oh, here you go. Here's
Oh,
select fire.
nice. I
too.
got a prowler too. Shit. My lucky freaking
Ooh,
day,
shit.
man.
Smell, yeah.
Body shield here. Level 1.
Blue,
Oh, I hear enemies
blue guy here.
over here, Joe. I mean, Joe, right across the
Okay, yeah,
bridge
we got
from us
pulls
here.
from behind too, so we gotta be careful.
Just around that corner, right?
Oh, there's somebody behind us.
Yeah. Oh, behind us.
I'm healing up real quick.
Gotcha,
Nice.
bitch. Hell yeah. Here's a Spitfire if that's your. Oh, you got a
Yeah.
Prowler, don't you?
Blue bag down here.
Oh, pulsed again. Oh, that's our dude. That's our dude.
Charging shields.
Oh, shit, was there a sight in there? I didn't even look to see if there was a sight.
Level 2.
I think. Yeah, here you go.
Oh,
1 to
my
2.
man, pots and pans.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because I do not like the scout iron sights.
Yeah, I don't like the way they're set up either. Like, if you can actually get them on somebody, you have a better chance. It's a little better chance of hitting than just the middle blade. I think. Like, I think it will let you get a hit to the left or right
Oh,
of it.
really?
But yeah,
You think so?
it kind of gets in the way of just a little. I might be
I mean,
wrong. I
it
don't
might,
know.
it very well
But
could.
yeah, it's difficult.
Energy ammo here.
Maybe it's just that, like, I've used it so much that I think it's given me a little bit of leeway when I'm actually just hitting them, you know.
Yeah, you're just being amazing.
But I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm just being fucking
Rings close.
G. But yeah, those 3 blades really do get in the way of acquiring your target. I mean,
Yeah, I don't like the iron sights on a prowler either. It's the other gun I have. But I'd rather have iron sights on.
yeah, me neither. That's
I'd
worse.
rather,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's bad.
I'd rather use those than the, and use the 1 to 2 on the scout. If it was like a
Yeah,
regular
yeah.
1X sight, I'd probably switch them. But
Yeah, anything besides the stock on this, I mean the iron sight on the scout is better.
Alright, so we
for
gotta
sure.
go the other way. You want a balloon? What do you want to do?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah,
Oh, there's a
I was
thingy.
like about to mark this way. What is? Oh, okay. Yeah, the little cargo box. Got it on gold too.
Yeah, not a great gold. There is a
I'll slap that on the
Yeah.
301.
Just gonna ask if you needed it.
Oh, hey, I don't even need that stabilizer.
But
I've
yeah, I
already
don't
got one.
need it either.
I guess this balloon is still closer. Yeah.
Stabilizer here.
If he says he needs it, I'll carry it for him. But oh, he's meeting us at the balloon.
Good shit.
Cool beans, Mao Zedong.
That's kind of funny. You know, Mao Zedong was like the Chinese dictator after communism
No, I didn't
began
know
there.
that.
But it's Zedong.
There's layers to his funny.
It's like a stoner
Yeah.
historian.
He probably thought it was so clever.
Syringe here.
Yeah. I saw some show. So that Mao Zedong guy, they called him Chairman Mao. He's like chairman of the Communist
Okay, I
Party
think
over there.
I've heard that.
And
That
us-
sounds-
yeah. And I saw some shit where they named their cat Chairman
Oh.
Meow. Oh, it was Psych. It was the show Psych.
That's pretty good.
Prowler SMG here.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny.
Scanning the area.
His pulse should be a different color, I think.
Oh
Like,
yeah, that'd be cool.
Just so we
like
can
the,
tell.
drones
Yeah,
a different
should
color.
be like green or whatever. Just so we could tell.
Absolutely.
Got a hop up here. Double tap trigger.
Flatline here.
R99 here. Flatline here.
I was really enjoying the Spitfire the last game, but I do really like the.
Did
Yeah,
you
but I
find
do really
another?
like the Prowler. Somebody zipping up in the back. Rear
Oh,
of the
I'm
ship.
with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, broke his arm shield. Nice.
Oh, how is he still alive?
Oh,
You got
somebody
it.
else.
You got it. Oh, where's that coming
Behind you.
from?
Contact.
Dude, it seemed like. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh shit,
shit,
he's on the
circle's
ground.
here.
One of them is. One of them's not. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, there's a kid right across from us here. Okay, it's round one. I broke. Oh shit, I'm down. I broke the shield on fast legs right here. Spare room. He's got a buddy down on the ground that'll probably be zipping up. I'm trying to do syringes.
Oh, that hurt so bad. Heal. Yeah.
Shit, oh shit. Dude, I'll get you if you don't.
Oh, I jumped too far down.
Shit, I'm coming, bro.
Opening fire on the enemy.
There's people across the way.
Oh, dude, they're all a fucking round.
That's a whole nother squad over
Yeah,
there.
let's retreat
Yeah.
to the east, dude, because, yeah, let's get the
No
fuck
hostile.
out.
Let's.
Here, I'll throw us a zip.
Come on, bro. You didn't take the zip line.
Come on, Mal.
Ah, shit, Mao.
I am repairing myself.
You dumb collective farming bitch.
You shield up. I'm gonna see if I can get
Coming,
him.
Joe, I'm 10 yards. Okay.
Recharging shields.
I got
Yeah, we're escaping.
Yeah, come on, Mal. Get to safety, bro. I'm running low on ammo, but I can use the scout.
Oh, does he not have?
Shield cell here.
Why are you not shielding up, bro?
Oh, they're still fighting.
Shield cell here.
Shield cell here.
He's a dumbass. This must be a kid or something. How do they keep pinging the shield cells?
What could that possibly mean?
Ooh.
I could use more heavy. I feel like I don't have enough.
Oh, I've only got 2 rounds, but you can have it. I don't have a heavy gun.
Thank you. That gives me 87. So it's enough for a fight, but like, if
Sweet.
there isn't any in the next fight, it will just be the scout I'm using.
Yeah, I'm trying to find some light myself.
Oh, I can give you some light. I'm only using a scout. Oh, someone's above us, zipping. Hey, come in here, come in here. I'll drop it.
Thank you. Oh, the circle's coming down. We'll have to throw us
Okay.
another zip. We'll have to throw us another zip.
Yeah, they're above us.
Yeah, let's get the fuck out. Holy shit. Okay, you're on it, okay. Oh, there's a dude out in the field.
Oh my god, this scout is
Dude,
so...
right up
I'm
here.
about to die.
Oh, I'm dead too, fuck. There's too many people. Dude, there's 50 fucking people, dude. Don't forget you're in round 2. You're very close to safety. There's shit going down up there. I'm at a box right here.
Looking out. I am repairing myself.
Oh shit, where's
He's
he
in
at?
the
Where's he
storm.
at? I got down. Oh, dude on the box where you got me up. Oh, smoke him.
It's a smoke show.
Way to go.
We're taking out the kill leader. Good work.
Smoke show, smoke show.
Setting shield, you'll be alright.
Oh, that's a gold box too.
Eyes out for.
Your help is very helpful.
Purple body armor in here.
Oh yeah, I hope he's got. Oh, thank you.
Shield, syringe here.
Yeah, I'll take 4 of those syringes.
Fortified here.
Whew.
Extended light mag here. Level 2.
Do you need a syringe?
No, I'm good. I got 7. I also got my healing thing.
Recharging my shields.
There's probably dudes over at the cave. I'm just assuming.
Stay within zone of my thing.
Does
Come
that
on, I'm
fucker got
healing you.
any
Come on, idiot.
sights? There we go.
I was healing him and he fucking walks away from my thing.
For being a dumb kid.
The ring is in close proximity.
Yeah, he's not too quick.
Alright, I'm going up here.
Okay, I'm with you.
30
That's our
seconds,
dude.
close. Standard stock here. Level 1.
I don't see any movement. I don't see anybody anywhere.
Yeah, they must have thinned each other out. The guys that were fighting to our left over here a minute
This
ago.
tunnel might be a trap.
I'm right with you.
Be on your P's and Q's.
Yeah, true.
Maybe something coming here. Iron it.
The ring's moving, friends.
Looks like a care package is coming in. Big things in that.
It's a 3x site here.
Optics here.
Oh yeah, I need that for this
Optics here.
circle I'm replacing it with. don't see anybody on the roof
I
yet,
see
but
a
there's that
box
zip
there.
line somebody
Somebody's
set up to
zipping
this.
all the way over,
Not best.
all the way in the
Okay.
distance.
Oh yeah, I see somebody else where he's zipping to on that roof, that
Okay.
distant roof.
Purple
to the
box
north.
here. Under shooting door left too. 2 to 4.
Optics.
We in the circle.
Yeah, we're in safety.
Oh shit.
Optics here. Mid-range.
Alright, he took that. Good. So we all have a distance.
Light ammo here.
Oh yeah, more syringes. If you don't need those syringes, I'll
No,
take them.
I
but
don't
if
need
you
them.
do, take
Oh
them.
shit, we
Okay,
gotta go.
good shit.
Let's get in cover.
Oh shit! Oh
I
shit!
picked them up, but I don't need them.
Yeah, it's over from that area. That's
Okay.
okay. I'm okay for now. I'm okay for now.
Giving my shields a recharge.
Yeah, they're a little above us from somewhere here. Oh, okay. Yeah, run up these stairs, I think. Or they find somebody else?
Ring is close.
I see smoke.
Let's explore this way.
Oh yeah.
Forget that.
Oh, jump pad. I'm going up to the roof. Oh no!
Alright,
that
I'm
bounced
right
me
behind
into
you.
the fucking thing. Alright, put him up here now.
Oh, hey, they're in this building over here, anyway. On that second floor.
I think he was teabagging somebody.
Oh, did you stop
Yeah.
him through the window?
The squad.
Oh, oh shit. Walking chances. Yeah, that door's the open. Okay, you see.
No, there's people up here. There's a Pathfinder up here.
Oh shit. I'm gonna throw a.
Oh shit, they melted me. I'm down.
Where's the
3
grenade?
seconds
Where's
and
the
the walls moving
grenade?
in.
The ring's moving, friends. Let's move this way.
And then heal yourself immediately.
Oh shit, I don't know how to get out of here. Just book it as fast as you can. I got. Oh god, I'm gonna die.
Oh yeah, I was trapped up there. Fuck.
I've been down.
I don't know if there's any way to escape the building, really. Maybe our teammate
Nope.
will get the fuck out. Nope.
Nope.
I could have got out of there, but man, somebody hit me with a grenade so hard it like put me down to like 20 health or some shit.
98 damage. He really helped us.
Yeah, thanks, pal.
Yeah.
Oh, talking about cat puns. This fucking. I had a friend that lived kind of far away from me as a kid, and not too far, like, 45 minutes away or something. I'd go visit him sometime. And we went to one of his friends' house, and they like adopted stray cats, and they had this big fucking cat habitat set up in their backyard, like, just like chicken wire and posts and shit, but it was like a whole. It was like maybe 100 square feet or something.
That's crazy.
And yeah, and they called it Meowschwitz.
I'm ready. Let's get the job done.
Like, what the fuck?
That's funny.
Cat puns.
You better hope you're with me.
Cats are pretty cute. I'm more of a dog person, but I like cats too.
Yeah, I
alright.
like cats.
Devad Puncher is our teammate. Fuck.
I feel most alive when rapidly approaching my death. We should conduct a search right here.
I don't know why I went to the roof, because I'm a fucking idiot. I guess I'll go to this big building. No, we should all stick together. I'm coming your way. Just put myself at a disadvantage because I'm a fucking numbskull.
All right. There are there are fewer guns than usual in the front room. There's practically nothing in the front room. I don't think. Not on the side I was in, anyway.
Cool. I just picked up.
You want a prowler?
Yeah.
Here you go.
Here, I'm dropping a hemlock.
It's not us. Hemlock here.
Oh yeah, I'll take that.
I got a barrel stabilizer for you too.
Oh, thanks. What guns do you have?
Prowler and hemlock. No, Prowler and Havoc.
All right. All right. Here's
Oh,
Slate Fire.
fuck yes.
I need it.
I don't have many bullets, but
Yeah, that Prowler is tough to use without that.
yeah, I got one of those.
Yeah,
already.
here's some heavy.
Yeah, if you, I mean, it still hits hard if you can land your shots.
Oh yeah, I agree. It may even do damage faster if you can hit your shots. If you
Yeah,
can hit all of them.
definitely faster than not hitting.
Because
your
it's like
shots.
real fast. Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I think it bursts faster than it full auto fires. Like, I mean, it does 5 bullets. Like,
okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
You know,
Possibly. Oh, there's a
if
blue
you can
light
hit
mag
every.
up here. Teammate didn't think that we would need it.
Oh shit! Oh, I got
Okay.
one actually.
No, I don't
You
need
need
it,
it, take
but
it.
I will definitely carry it for later. Oh, are
Take
we,
it or
oh.
ping it. No, he's shooting up. Yo, dude, I got, I said I got strep throat and they gave me antibiotics and stuff. Usually, like, antibiotics will start clearing it up relatively soon. I don't know if they're fucking doing anything this time. You ever have
No.
strep throat?
Yeah.
Really? Some people don't get it all. I have a friend that's like
Level 2.
almost 80 years old. He told me he's never had it in his life, but it's just a bad bacterial infection in your throat, and like usually it'll clear up quick, but I've only got like 2 days of antibiotics left and I'm still kind of feeling shitty, which is weird.
Yeah, that's.
I'd have to go back to the DR.
Maybe it's the corona. It's not strep throat.
Yeah, well, they did a culture. It's a bacterial thing. They just swab your throat and do a culture of it, and they know it's strep, And I don't have any kind of long pulmonary shit. It's just only my throat.
Right. Did you pick up that blue bag that he pinged?
Yeah. Well, I don't know,
Okay.
but I've got
Nope.
one. I don't know if I
No
picked
big
it up
deal.
or not.
I just was gonna run back for it. Yep. Somebody is either setting his gas traps off or he's through his ultimate.
Yeah, I'm wondering what happened to. Yeah, I guess nobody's attacking him. So. Dude, what's he shooting at? Like, mark an enemy if you see an enemy, dude.
There's a loot thing flying overhead.
There's a care package coming out.
Oh yeah, okay.
Nice fucking shot.
I shot down a cargo bot.
Thank you. Man, it stays. It's very. Oh man, I accidentally grappled to the zip line. It really only stays on gold like a second now.
Yeah.
Shotgun bolt. Come on, man. 2 shotgun bolts, 2 ultimate accelerants, and a
That's
syringe.
bullshit.
The fuck.
the actual fuck.
Did you say you had a lock
No.
gun?
Prowler and Havoc.
Okay. Okay.
Come on, Vag Puncher. You're moving too much. Why would you ping that? You don't have a level 2 body shield.
Why is he not picking it up?
Who are you, monkey?
We've got a monkey. Yeah.
Dibs.
Placing gas trap.
You can have it. I just didn't want it to disappear.
Dude, I might hear somebody. No, no, you can have it. Oh, that's you, I think. That I hear. I'm not sure, dude. Yeah, that was you. That was you.
Body shield here. Level 2.
Alright. Dibs that shit.
Okay, dude.
He must think he's a fucking
Vag Puncher don't
crate
need no
maker.
shield. Yeah. These bins in this middle building, he's not looting any bins, dude. All these bins are unlooted.
Phoenix
Why are you
detected.
doing this, bro? Why are you doing this?
Barrel stabilizer.
This guy's a madman.
I don't like it.
Gas trap deployed.
There's
It's gonna
another
get
one.
us killed.
Body shield here.
You better take this.
No,
There's-
it's... I don't get it either. He's like already a mile ahead.
Watch out for the new kill leader, friend.
If he wants to
you
leave
don't have a lot, okay.
loot around, give me that blue bag.
Yeah, really though.
I could use a better heavy clip besides white.
Gas trap deployed.
Alright.
Independent variable added.
You don't need a white
Nope.
stabilizer, do you? Alright. Ah. Yeah, I don't get this kid. I'm predicting he's going to get killed real quick, though.
I suspect we will find something here.
Optics here. Close range.
Planning the attack over there.
What, does he see somebody? Oh, he says he's attacking this spot. You
Yeah.
want to go to him? I'll throw a zip.
Setting up a zip line.
Yay.
Moving into attack here.
Yay!
Right behind you.
He's probably going to kill like whole squad, and he's like saying to himself, "I told you I punch badges, bro."
I'm up here punching Vages while y'all still back there looting.
Placing gas trap. Gas trap deployed.
Do I hear enemies?
Enemy spotted.
Listen up, I'm getting shot at.
Did a little damage to that one we're aiming at.
Maybe if you had a real fucking shoot.
Oh shit! Yeah, you didn't punch the badge, kid.
Oh, that sniper fucking hurt.
Oh shit! I think there's. Yeah, I gotta move. I gotta move.
Maybe you should have a real fucking shield. This is. I'm legit angry
Yeah.
about this.
Well, he's the badge fighter. He
Oh,
needs
now
no
you're
shield.
down again.
Oh,
Good
shit.
job, bro.
Shit.
I'll try to get you up for a third fucking time.
Yeah, you better get to punching badges. Dude, he's not even.
Oh,
This kid's an
you
idiot.
fucking kidding me. I'm not even wasting time to get up. Yeah, robot back here.
Shit.
What the fuck?
Oh no. Yeah, that kid got us killed. 0 damage, 0 kills. bypassing body armor so he can run
To
fast.
get into a fight that he can't.
What the fuck, man?
I feel like he was just trolling.
That kid's
That's
a
crazy.
clown.
That is such.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. What the fuck was that? Hey, did you see that shit on Facebook? It was like, you know, that meme format where somebody will like put somebody's name and say colon and you know, make a quote, and then somebody else colon make a quote or something
No.
like that. Anyway, you would know if I was talking. I'm not describing it
Okay.
well, but anyway, like it was like it was like saying the press said Trump was racist for saying Chinese virus, and then it was like meanwhile in Mexico, it showed like a gift market, or I mean like a market in Mexico with gifts and shit, and there were these piñatas that were shaped like the coronavirus, you know, but they had like these South Park looking Chinese faces with the fucking Fu Manchu mustaches on them.
That's super racist.
It was, yeah, it was fucking. I want to send you a picture when we get out of the game or something. It's pretty funny. And like, who is the entrepreneur that reacts to market forces so quickly that they can craft custom piñatas, custom racist virus-shaped
I mean,
piñatas?
we used to make our own piñatas as kids, because we were in the Scouts. So, like, my mom did a lot of the craft stuff. So, like, we used to make our own, yeah,
like
paper mache
paper mache or-
piñatas and stuff.
Or is it something else?
Yeah, it was paper mache. But, like, if you have an entire factory full of people, you know what I mean? And they
Right.
all know how to do that and, like, sew shit and whatever, like, they could probably also be mass producing masks.
Oh yeah.
Like, I have a store on Etsy for a hoodie I designed a while back, and also a Zero Logic shirt. And when all this started happening, there was like emails I was getting from Etsy, like talking about how, like, when they're talking about like the stimulus plan for people and businesses and stuff, they weren't including like people who are self-employed, like that type of thing, like people that worked at home. Like if you had a business and whatever, like you were included, but like people working on Etsy didn't, stuff like that. So it's like sign this petition and whatever. And there was other emails where it's like tips on whatever, but I got one today that was like, if you have the material and are able to make masks, you should do so because the demand is so high, because like they have to like reuse them and stuff. Yeah.
On Etsy.
So like, I don't have the ability to do that, but kind of wish I did.
There's dudes downstairs, by the way.
I got a Sentinel on the P2020.
Yeah, I guess they're saying like just cloth
Yeah.
masks and stuff. I'm almost on you. I'm almost with you.
Oh, got that
I'm
down.
with you.
Somebody was shooting at him from over there.
I hear somebody else, Joe, but oh, they're getting that dude up. I got
Nice.
the dude getting the dude up. Somebody else is firing from the left somewhere. I don't see him, but oh, you see the L
Yeah.
star
Oh,
coming in.
they
though.
just killed that squad. The two people that you just downed are down.
Oh, dude right here, he's hurt real bad. I got him, but there's another one at the top of the stairs. He's not hurt. He's getting his buddy up. I'm just marking where they're at. Yeah, kid, don't fuck with the squad.
Zero Logic did not come to
Good
play.
shit.
Oh, you're just gonna loot? Really?
Oh, wow, kid.
Had no fucking part in that.
Wow.
Looted the fucking purple shit.
Yeah, he just like speed looted the fucking
Alright.
shit.
I'm gonna let him die.
Oh my
Oh
god.
yeah, I'm gonna heal you. You come here. Stay
yeah,
back.
I'm
You
almost
get
dead.
healed.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have any shields for you.
Yeah, that kid. This kid's what we call cannon
Yeah.
fodder.
Just topping off my shields.
Thank you. Here they come. Got him. Another one.
Enemy taken down.
He's hurt real bad. Okay. Yeah, don't let this
Yeah,
fucker
take
get
it off.
anything.
The circuit is complete.
Throwing grenades.
Oh,
grenades.
nade incoming from right in the middle.
Listen up, I'm getting shot at.
I have
Oh shit, I'm down.
contact with target.
Good shit. Good shit.
That squad is all down.
Damn, how many squads is that we've raped?
Reloading.
I know, but I'm picking all the stuff. So.
I have their banner. We can restore the circuits.
Looting all the stuff so he can't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, I don't have anything for shields. Oh, there was a shield battery somewhere that I saw, but I couldn't run out of my way to go get because of the fight.
Here I come. Back from the sky.
So he didn't find it either.
I'm coming in now.
Oh, he got some shit out of that. The guy's box there in the corner.
Dude, that was cray cray.
Body shield here. Leather one.
I got light ammo for you if you need it.
R301 here.
Yeah, I'll pick up a 301 or something.
Yeah, I have tons of light ammo. I hardly have any heavy.
You hear that? There's a care package coming down.
Yeah, I don't have any heavy either. I've got a heavy and a lot. I just picked up 301. Thank you. Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's
look at them.
plenty.
They're
Thank you.
fucking. Oh, fuck this dude.
Yeah, Yeah, he's probably like this last kid.
Yeah, I'm gonna check this bin real quick.
Yeah,
More
we're
light
probably
bullets
better
here.
off on our own.
And a 99 if you want that.
I guess I'll stick with 301.
Backpack here. Level 1.
Thank you. He's like 200 or 300 yards away marking enemies. Come on, kid. Be serious.
I almost want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, whatever you're feeling, I don't mind going somewhere else. Or oh, somebody's zipping up to here, Joe. To the top of the. Oh, he got him down. He got him down. Oh, there's more people. Do you want to drop down and fight?
Not really.
Okay, okay.
I'm right up
Where
here
you
with
at?
you.
Here, I'll. You want me to?
Whatever you want to do. Whatever
throw us
you
a
want.
zip
If you
somewhere?
want to go down, we can go down. We can go down. If you want. If you don't want to.
Okay. I don't care either way, really.
Alright,
I'm
with
down.
you.
I'm down. They might have got their buddy up. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you.
Right here. Oh, there's somebody else up the hill.
Oh shit! Both sides.
Nice.
Got you, bitch.
Oh, and our teammate left because he's a fucking piece
that
of
was
shit. Oh, the
close.
storm's coming.
Yeah, we should. Oh, we're in safety. We're in the circle.
No.
Aren't we? No, we're not. No, we're not.
1 second.
What? Loot it! Loot it! I'm here. I'm gonna throw us a zip. I'm throwing
Okay.
a zip the fuck out of here.
Okay.
Setting up a zip line.
Shit. Oh shit. You might want to jump off so we can run up. Golly bum, our teammate's an idiot. Oh my gosh. Hectic.
Patching myself up a bit.
Thanks for the adrenaline rush, you asshole
Yeah.
teammate.
Like, alright, we don't have too far to go.
Yeah, we're almost safe. Here's a Phoenix.
Deploying help drone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll use your drone instead of that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I gotta do it for shields anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that kid sucked, man. I mean, it was cool to win the battle though, but still, I mean, he fucking
Got
leaves.
some sniper ammo here.
I mean, what a
Yeah.
dumbass. He like runs off by himself, starts a fight, gets mad we're not there with him like he's the
Mhm.
leader, when we're obviously
Yeah,
the
obviously.
leaders.
He's obviously just a bitch.
It's like, yeah, obvi bitch.
Oh, a blue back. Oh, you got a blue back.
Yeah, he's gonna
Do
be
you need
sorry
heavy
when
also?
we win this.
Probably right.
Oh, I could use some, yeah,
Uh,
but I got plenty of
yeah, I
light.
got plenty
so,
of light too.
Yeah.
So much light, I should probably switch to dual light. Honestly.
Yeah, we've had a couple games with just shitloads of light ammo.
Lucky me, I have an extended sniper mag here.
Somebody zipping. I just heard a. Oh, okay.
That was me. That was me.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna switch to this wingman. So I'm dropping this if you need it. Oh,
Let's go this way.
oh there's shit on the shelves. What?
Yeah, I use a little.
Maybe that just happened to be where things fell.
Oh, really?
Because my one thing, the barrel stabilizer fell on the shelf, but this clip was already on there.
Oh, that's weird.
Now
You
you
don't
can
need
have.
that clip?
Only 30 seconds left on the clock. The ring's close.
Shit's looted. It looks.
Yeah, we got a little way to run.
And I can call in my special and hopefully get you a better shield.
Alright.
I can see that the ring's moving on the map.
Dude, I haven't eaten in like over 8 hours.
That's not
And
healthy.
usually when I don't eat that long, I'm like really, well yeah, I mean that's rare. I mean it's a rare thing. But like I'm usually feeling like real shitty if I don't eat that long, but I've drank a few beers and I guess like my body's subsisting on the alcohol calories. I'm starting, like just as I'm talking about it, I'm starting to feel a little bit
There, yep. Blue vest here.
semi-woozy.
Close range. Body
And a
shooting.
2x and a shield thing.
Or
Yeah,
2x.
that's you if you want it.
I don't even need the 2x. If okay, well I'll take it. I've got a 2 to 4 on my long range gun though,
No,
so if you want
I'm
it,
good.
I'll be
I
glad
got
to
a
drop.
2x on my wingman and a gold on my 99.
Okay. Good shit. Yeah, you know, I've considered running a wingman with a 2x, like as my long range before. I mean, you know, medium,
Yeah.
long range, whatever. It's pretty good when
Yeah.
you're on with it.
Yeah, I like it. There's been a couple games where I've been on point.
Makes you feel like Dirty Harry.
Oh, it makes me feel like dirty something. I just picked up a purple heavy mag if you need it. Oh, you're here. Okay, cool.
Good shit.
And then 20 energy if you need.
Oh, are you double line? Oh, you don't want
I
that
got
for
a
your
purple
wingman?
for my wingman. That's a spare
Oh, okay,
purple.
good shit.
I got too many purples. Ooh, here's some
Purple
heavy bullets up
nurples.
here.
Heavy ammo here.
Alright. Good shit. Yeah, that's about all I need right there. I'm pretty ammoed up now.
Okay, I could even drop a little bit. I got 99.
Oh, no, I got plenty. I got like 130
Yeah.
or 127 or something.
Okay, I can't even carry all this heavy. There's 19 more bullets here.
Heavy ammo here.
I've got plenty of heals, but what kind of heals do you have? I might have some you
got-
can use.
5 small shields, 9 small heals, and 2 big heals.
All right, I'll give you a shield battery.
That would be super cool.
The ring is close. Less than a minute.
Oh, I gotta drop something for it. I'm gonna drop 1 syringe for it.
Okay, take it.
Just dropped an arc star for that burning stick.
Half a minute.
This is out of the circle. I realize that, but I thought I heard bullets.
Oh, hey, we only got 15 seconds. I thought it'd be okay to run on around this, but I think it might pinch us if we do that.
The ring is fairly
I was hoping to
I don't
catch
know.
somebody panicked running in from the ring.
Oh yeah, I wanted to run around it, but I just looked at the clock and I thought we might get
We
caught.
can zip across.
Yeah. Oh, good shit. Okay.
incoming care package. High flow fluid.
Med kit here.
I'm gonna look downstairs real quick, see if there's like a light mag. Nope.
That's a full stack of light.
Here.
Well, I can't even carry it so much.
It's a game package. I don't know if you want to check that.
I'm kind of scared, but if you want to do it, I'm with you.
I mean, I'm okay with what we got. I'm gonna take this
Wait.
balloon up to the roof of the big building.
Yo, I hear some very distant fire.
And I'm gonna jump off before it get to the top.
I'm back.
There's
I'm
someone on the
behind you.
ground on the floor.
Oh, we're getting fired
Yeah.
at from below?
I am
From
taking
where we were at, yeah.
friends.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Oh,
Oh, I'm getting
shit.
torn up.
Oh
Take
yeah.
cover if you
Oh
can.
shit.
Oh my god. Trying to Phoenix, I'm almost dead.
Come on, sailor.
We fucked
Thank you.
up.
Oh, I didn't see anybody
No, me
around.
neither.
1 minute. The
Here they
ring is
come,
in
here they
fire.
come. Oh damn. Sorry, Joe. I heard the robot pretty bad, but
Damn, there was full squad.
damn. There are too many of them. If our stupid teammate hadn't fucked
Yeah, all
around.
his.
I got one more in me if you want to play another, and if you don't, it's okay.
Yeah, now my neck's actually getting
Whatever.
stiff from staring up at the screen, so I think I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been playing for quite a few
Yeah.
hours here. Probably like 4.5 hours or
Some
something.
crazy stuff.
But yeah,
And you
yeah.
gotta eat. You haven't eaten in 8 hours.
I'll,
You need to fucking get
you
food
know.
in that belly.
Yeah, I need to eat something.
Go.
Yeah, you gotta feed me. I just want my portion. Like, yeah, but I'll
Yeah,
see you soon. Probably tomorrow
Yeah,
or
someday
next day.
soon.
It's whenever you're feeling like it.
Okay. Adios, buddy.
All right.
Yeah, you
Good
too.
games. Adios. See you.
Hostile spotted.
Yeah. Okay, I'm actually done streaming. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna log. I'm gonna sign off the stream and then. Alright. Alright, so let me drop this. So I'm making the camera big, so stay where you are. They can see you.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine. Alright, so thank you for coming out. Appreciate it. Whether it was Facebook, Twitch, Mixer, YouTube. I do appreciate it. Also, it is Mechanic on all socials except Twitter. It's Mechanic G.